Okay. We're live. Don't see video. Okay, I see video. We're gonna start at 5:30 tonight. Really cutting it down to the wire tonight. But I need to start a bit early because this isn't even the only title card. We're gonna be going over Tournament Pack 2, the Battle Tins, the promotional cards from Eternal Duelist Soul, the whole set Pharaoh's Servant, the Shonen Jump promo, and then the McDonald set. Hopefully we have time for all of that, because it's like 160 cards, I want to say. Some of them are reprints, so we're not terribly worried about anything reprinted. Yeah, finally got to join one of these live. Carter Parrott, glad to have you aboard. And glad to have you aboard. And we got one from Ducathan Salt. Oh boy, more cards. Yep. We're going to be going over all of them eventually. And hopefully I'm going to have time for some better hours, Carter. I want to do a Saturday stream, but it just hasn't lined up yet. Hey Martin, remember the old video we did? I do. That was good, and I just wish I had more time to contribute for things like that. But I'm glad to have you aboard. Okay. Okay. Oop. There we go. Okay. I have some certain tins from 2010 you can go over. Yep. We're in 2002. Actually, I think this might be every card from 2002 finished today, if we can pull it off. But there's a lot, so here's hoping. First set today is going to be Tournament Pack 2, or Tournament Pack 2nd Season. First card in the set is Morphing Jar. Earth Attribute, Level 2, Rock, Flip Effect Monster. Both players discard all the cards from their hands. Then draw 5 cards. 700 attack, 600 defense. So this is a card effect, so it will trigger Dark Worlds, will trigger Fableds, I think it will trigger Danger Monsters. Just a very strong card. This is the integral card when you play Empty Jar. It's flip down and flip face up over and over again. I don't know what deck it would fit in today, but the card is really good. It's probably the best card in this whole set, which is a little sad, but these are tournament packs, and tournament packs are mostly OCG imports that we don't get in the main sets. The Gallant Granite, being able to search for it, for pure Empty Jar FTK. I forgot, it's rock, so that's actually useful for once. I forgot Gallant Granite is a real good card. Next up, Dragon Seeker. Dark Attribute, Level 6, Fiend, Effect Monster. When this card is normal or flip summoned, destroy one face-up Dragon-type monster on the field. 2000 attack, 2100 defense. I don't know if this is even good on release. Like, you're tributing a monster, and then you can take out a dragon. I like the idea behind it. It's sort of like Big Game Hunter and Hearthstone, where you have a not great statted monster that has a conditional effect, but that conditional effect is actually pretty strong. I think it's either filler outclassed or good on release, and I'm not sure. This would be a side deck card, of course. I don't think there are any dragons in the meta outside of maybe Blue Eyes White Dragon, but imagine taking out your opponent's Blue Eyes. That's a pretty good feeling. Next up, Giant Red Sea Snake. Water Attribute, Level 4, Aqua, Normal. a sea-dwelling snake that attacks passing enemies with its sharp teeth. 1800 attack, 800 defense. I mean, we have Mechanical Chaser, so this card's not meta, but it's still decent. I think I put 7-colored fish in good on release because it's still got high attack points, but it's not good yet. Talking about Dragon Seeker kills a Blue Eyes White Dragon if people are still playing Lord of D Turbo at this point in time. That's true. That's true. That's a big if. It's definitely a side deck card. Next up, another side deck card, but I actually really like this cycle, and I wish it were expanded. We have Exile of the Wicked, normal spell, destroy all fiend monsters on the field. And I actually have the OCG artwork here. And I want to say that this card, if it had better availability, would have even been meta at one point. The card's still good, but I don't think it's worth considering. I don't think you run in a very specific board disruption tool when you have Raigeki, Lightning Storm, and Evenly Matched. But I'm going to say this is a very good card on release, at least, because there are a lot of fiend monsters in the metagame. Just getting rid of like your opponent's Wall of Illusion with this, that's 1-for-1 removal and getting rid of a pretty nasty monster. Next up, Call of the Grave, normal trap. When your opponent activates Monster Reborn, negate the effect of that Monster Reborn. Well, this isn't a counter trap, so I don't understand it. These super specific counters like Anti-Raigeki and Jar Robber, Call to the Grave, or Call from the Grave? Call of the Grave. Very, very confusing. Are not good yet. I don't think this card's ever good, even though when we have access to the Blue Eyes White Dragon, to the Monster Reborn now. You can tell what's on my mind. Dragons. But next up, Mikazuki no Yaiba. Dark Attribute, level 7, Dragon Normal Monster, a Dragon Warrior of the Moon, armed with a Crescent Sword. 2200 attack, 2350. I think it's bad. I think it's a bad level 7 normal monster. I think that's fair. Next up, Skull Guardian, light attribute, level 7, warrior, ritual monster. And then it has the old ritual text. This monster can only be ritual summoned with the ritual magic card Novok's Prayer. You must also offer monsters whose total star level equals 7 or more as a tribute from the hand or your field. 2050 attack, 2500 defense. This card's real bad. Even for the 4 or 5 rituals that are in the game, I think only Relinquished is just a little bit playable, but these are real cool looking cards at least. Next up, Novok's Prayer, the ritual spell for it. This card is used to ritual summon Skull Guardian. You must also offer monsters whose total level stars equal 7 or more as a tribute from the field or your hand. It just sounds so awkward before the problem-solving text. I could see them going into either filler, outclassed, or bad, because these are extremely mediocre stats for what's at least a -2. Next up, fan favorite, Dokuro Rider. Dark attribute, level 6, zombie ritual monster. This card can only be ritual summoned while with the ritual magic card Revival of Dokuro Rider. You must also offer monsters whose total level stars equal 6 or more as a tribute from the field or your hand. 1900 attack, 1850 defense. That's better stats, but I don't think it's great yet. Really cool card. This is a fan favorite card. and its ritual is Revival of Dokuro Rider. Revival of Dokuro Rider. I said it right the first time. Ritual spell. This card is used to ritual summon Dokuro Rider. You must also offer monsters whose total level stars equal 6 or more as a tribute from the field or your hand. Ooh. Rituals are my favorite mechanic. Sad they're either completely degenerate or completely terrible with no in between. I think that's a good summarization, because like the Gishkis, I think they were even banned before they got to the TCG because they were so degenerate. And then the only good rituals outside of that are like Herald of Perfection and the, oh man, I am blanking. The ones with Trishula and Colossalis, and I can't remember the name right now. Next up, Beautiful Head Huntress. Earth attribute, level 4, warrior, a vicious creature that has decapitated numerous enemy monsters. 1600 attack, 800 defense. I'm going to put it in normal tier. This card was actually meta in 1999 in the very early sets because it was pretty big. It's 1600 attack, level 4. Good artwork too. Next up, Sonic Maid. Earth attribute, level 3, warrior, a maiden that uses sound to her advantage. She wields a scythe that is shaped like a musical note. 1200 attack, 900 defense, normal tier. Necros. Necros are definitely the monster type that I can't remember. Not the monster type, the archetype I cannot remember. Thank you. Megaliths were good. Good and fair? I think that's the hard part. The really tricky part is you can make them good, but you can't make them balanced. Because it's just a razor's edge. Next up, Mystical Sheep number 1. Earth attribute, level 3. Beast effect. You can substitute this card for any one fusion material monster. When you do this, the other fusion material monsters must be the correct ones. 1150 attack, 900 defense. We saw several of these in the previous tournament pack, and I'm just going to put it in filler. It's not bad. That's a decent effect. Next up, Warrior of Tradition. Earth attribute, level 6, warrior fusion. Materials are Sonic Maid and Beautiful Head Huntress. Hey, those are right here. 1900 attack, 1700 defense. So this is a decent card to bring out with Metamorphosis, when we get Metamorphosis. But I can't think of a modern use for it because it's unfortunately level 6, so you can't bring it out with instant fusion. It's level 6. Instant fusion is level 5 or lower. So, oh no. Next up, Soul of the Pure. I'm actually featuring the TCG artwork. I'm not featuring the OCG artwork because it has self-harm. But the reasoning behind that, it's a picture of an angel drawing blood because the Japanese name for the card is Angel Blood. And they could have done it so much better. They could have just had like a fancy bottle that's got angel wings on it and called it Angel Blood in this country, but they just went a completely different direction. So we got Soul of the Pure, which is okay. Normal spell, increases your life points by 800 points. That's not good. That's just bad. Decent effect on Mythical Sheep number 1, but what fusion is worth making around this time, especially if you have to play the other materials and poly? That's a good question. I gotta think about that one. You don't bring anything from the fusion deck out legitimately. I don't think it's a mech card. I think it's a dead on arrival card because we already have Diankito Cure Master, so this card was power crept before it was released. And there are worse ones. There's like red medicine and blue medicine and just real bad. Next up, Dancing Elf. Wind attribute, level 1, fairy, an elf that dances across the sky with wings of razor-sharp blades. 300 attack, 200 defense. This is one of the weakest stat-wise monsters in the game. I know Thousand Idol exists and Phantom of Chaos, but this level 1, I think, is one of the weakest. I'm just going to put it in normal tier. You can use 1-for-1 to bring it out. It's a fairy. There might be something that you could be doing with Herald of Perfection that might make it a gimmick. Like if you wanted to get 6 little monsters into the grave, you could. It's wind attribute, so it's not great for chaos. I don't know why you'd want to put it in your deck. Maybe super gimmick is back when Dark Samorg wasn't banned. You'd use that as your wind. I don't know. Next up, Turupurin, water attribute, level 2, aqua. A strange one-eyed monster that can fell an enemy with a single stab of its spear. 450 attack, 500 defense. It's really cute and only a little menacing. So, what if you bring it out with Umi? I don't think Umi makes it better. Ooh, it is a totally awesome material. Okay, we'll put it in the gimmick. Wait a second, why was Frog the Jam so expensive if we had Turupurin and some other aquas? Do people just love Frog the Jam? I think it's safe in gimmick tier right now. Next up, Dharma Cannon, dark attribute, level 2, machine. A monstrous creature whose body is lined with cannons that never miss their target. 900 attack, 500 defense. This is pretty cool artwork. It's Darumaka, like one of the dolls that you have and then you burn them at the end. Daramatan. There's a Pokemon based on it. But next up, we got Stuffed Animal. This is a Fluffle prototype, at least visually. Earth attribute, level 3. Warrior. I don't know why it's a warrior. That is just so random. It may look like a harmless stuffed animal, but its zipper mouth deals a deadly bite. 1200 attack, 900 defense. Put it in normal tier. Really good artwork, though. Like, I really like that artwork. Next up, Spirit of the Books. Wind attribute, level 4, Winged Beast. This wise spirit dwells in books, using its accumulated knowledge to defeat enemies. 1400 attack, 1200 defense. Put them in normal tier. I think we're like 2 sets away from retiring the normal tier, at least in the main sets. But tournament packs are gonna always be filled with normal junk. Next up, Faith Bird. Wind attribute, level 4, Winged Beast. This long-tailed bird blinds enemies with mystical light. 1500 attack, 1100 defense. Normal. Next up, Takuhi. Wind attribute, level 4, Winged Beast. This bird is known far and wide as a harbinger of doom. 1450 attack, 1000 defense. Normal. And grab the tea. Next up, Maiden of the Moonlight. Light attribute, level 4. Spellcaster, a sorcerer blessed by lunar light with powers far beyond mortal comprehension. 1500 attack, 1300 defense. More normal filler. Pretty good artwork, though. Next up, Queen of Autumn Leaves. Earth attribute, level 5, plant. Queen of the Emerald Forest and wife of the Spirit King. She lives surrounded by vivid red leaves. 1800 attack, 1500 defense. This is like one of 3 cards that were together in the Bondi set, and you bring them together and they do something. But I think it's just bad right here. But you can bring it out with Lone Fire Blossom. Doesn't help. Followed by Two-Headed King Rex, Earth Attribute, level 4, Dinosaur. A powerful monster whose 2 heads attack as 1. 1600 attack, 1200 defense. This might be the strongest dinosaur we have. I think the previous one was Urabi. So, yay. Followed by Garuzis. Fire Attribute, level 5, Beast Warrior. An axe-swinging Beast Warrior with the head of a dragon. 1800 attack, 1500 defense. Hey, we just saw that stat line, and it was bad. This is followed by Crawling Dragon number 2, Earth Attribute, level 4, Dinosaur. A powerful dragon, but it's a dinosaur type. A powerful dragon with teeth that can grind almost anything to dust. 1600 attack, 1200 defense. Those are the exact stats, attribute, level, and type of Two-Headed King Rex. This card is a functional reprint, one of the very few in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, these cards are completely fungible. So much flavor text that just describes the art you're already seeing. I don't know, a lot of people ask for more flavor text. Milo Brucker. There's something so enduring about early Yu-Gi-Oh! Card design. Like, I'd love to play in a hyper-limited format with just old cards. I do too. Really bad. I don't know how you'd pull it off, but I think custom ban lists and maybe revert back to old mechanics and have little pools of people where you're playing just old formats. I think that'd be really fun. But it's hard to get people to agree to that because a lot of people much prefer the game at different states. Next up, Parrot Dragon. Wind Attribute, level 5, Dragon Normal Monster. A dragon from the cartoons that's more dangerous than it appears to be. This is like not a tune, but it's from the cartoons. 2000 attack, 1300 defense. Pegasus card similar to Toon Alligator. A fake tune. Next up, Sky Dragon. Wind Attribute, level 6, Dragon. A flying dragon with 4 wings housing some very dangerous blades. 1900 attack, 1800 defense. Theoretically, you could play this in Hieratics, but I just think it's bad right now. And finally, for the set, we have Water Magician, which is Water, level 4, Aqua. This monster swamps an opponent with an almost endless supply of water. 1400 attack, 1000 defense. Woo! Put him in normal tier. Sky Dragon is missing teeth. Indeed he is. That must be why his attack is so low. Hey TCGTheory, I love your content. Keep up the great work. Super stoked to catch the stream. I'm glad you're here too, Mystic Miner. Oh no. Oh no, that card. Oh no. That card's scary. Gonna... There we go. Next up, we're going to talk about the 2002 10 promos, but as you can see, all of these cards are reprints, so we don't really need to talk about them. Future sets, I think like Rocket Warriors, a promo, technically XYZ Dragon Cannon, Catapult Cannon. They got long names. That one is released a little bit early, but you can't even summon it. So, we're going straight to the next one. Which is Eternal Duelist Soul. From Yugi himself. The BPT were my favorite 10 promos. Oh. You mean like specifically the Dark Magician? Oops. We are gracelessly transitioning to the next set of cards from Eternal Duelist Soul. And we have like the most contentious card I've ever talked about, mainly because I am just super wrong. Exchange is a normal spell. Both players reveal their hands and add one card from each other's hand to their hand. This card is mind-boggling because I thought this was one of the worst effects in the game. You're giving your opponent information, you're giving your opponent a resource, you're going -1, but despite all of that, this card has seen meta success, and as a disruption tool, specifically because you can take out your opponent's hand traps before they can use them, and I just can't understand it. You could take a hand trap or a starter from your opponent. I don't know if it's all the way up at worth considering today or meta at one point, but the card is, at least, has seen some competitive success, and I was just so wrong. Exchange certainly helped me in Battle City, indeed. Also, Secret Dark Magician, very nice. I hate this card in concept, but in execution, it's actually totally fine. Still a design mistake, though, just on the principle, in my opinion. Are you one of those people that hates all forms of hand disruption because they are just unfun to play against and takes an element out of the game? Because I can definitely see it all the way up as design mistake, or worth considering today, but this is the most contentious card I've ever covered because I thought it was a 0. Oh no, you can't see the tier list. Why can't you see the tier list? Can't see the tier list because I didn't turn off the title card. Okay. Or the cursor. Feeling good. Mystic Miner, do you get to keep the card after the game is over? Ooh, that would make Exchange a real design mistake. We're actually going to cover a card like that in the future, in this video even, but we're not quite there yet. I don't think so. In Magic the Gathering, there used to be Ante, where both players would put up a card at the beginning of the game, and whoever won got both cards, and that's a terrible mechanic that should never be integrated into the game, but it's in Battle City and with the rare card hunters, and it would be funny. I'm not putting it past people to to steal cards with Exchange. Maybe not even intentionally, but that'd be too big of a buff. Next up, quick pace spell, Graceful Dice. Roll a 6-sided die. Oh, wait a second. It's Graceful Dice, but you only roll 1. Shouldn't it be Graceful Die? or that might be confusing to people. Roll a 6-sided die. All monsters you currently control gain attack and defense equal to the results times 100 until the end of this turn. Theoretically, this card is okay. Like, it's on a full board, you could get an expected return of 350 attack points per monster, but you're spreading it out on the board. If you really high roll, then you can get up to 3,000 more attack points. But that's like best case scenario thinking. I think it's just filler outclassed. Theoretically, it's better than Rush Recklessly, but Rush Recklessly is probably better overall. Graceful Dice and Skull Dice in the anime were a lot better because Joey is incredibly lucky. Speaking of which, Skull Dice, normal trap. Roll a 6-sided die. All monsters your opponent currently controls lose attack and defense equal to the result times 100 until the end phase. This card's even worse. It is so bad. It's just so bad. It's reactive. It's slow. It's inconsistent. It's never going to be useful. But that's the promos for Eternal Duelist Soul. I'm going to queue up the next set now. Here we go. Okay, next set, Pharaoh's Servant. This is a big one, and a pretty cool one. There's a lot of fun cards. Oop, spoiler. This set is like half, it's actually more than half. It's like 70% traps or something super ridiculous. We got it queued up. Okay. A lot of sets covering this time. In the anime, these dice targeted monsters, but they multiplied/divided instead of adding/subtracting 100. Indeed, they were better in the anime. I completely forgot how they worked. I just thought that Joey was cheating because he's always so lucky. There are some amazing cards in this set. In Pharaoh's Servant. Finally get into some of the fun stuff. There's a whole bunch of interesting cards, and I actually think that that's some of the most fun sets. Not necessarily sets with broken cards, but interesting more than anything. First card up, though, Genzo. Dark Attribute, level 6, Machine Effect Monster. Traps and their effects on the field cannot be activated. Negate all trap effects on the field. 2400 attack, 1500 defense. Can you skill prisoner this guy? Or breakthrough skill? Meta at one point. Jinzo was even banned at one point. This card really defined the game for quite some time. This card single-handedly dissuaded use of traps and was like a staple in all the Monarch and similar tribute-based decks. How did people use Jinzo during this format? Wasn't there a lot of unbanned spell cards that destroy, like Dark Hole? Did they set Soldier of Stone and then wait next turn? So Raise Arrows MC specifically asks, how do you get Jinzo out? Well, you can use a couple different techniques. One of them is like discard and then reanimate with Monster Reborn. That's probably a pretty good one. You can Change of Heart, steal your opponent's monster, then tribute to bring it out. There's a few There's a few different ones. Am I wrong? Jinzo was never banned, just limited? I might be wrong on that. I prefer the original art for the record, but I wanted to show off the alternate art. Next up, Steel Ogre Grotto number 2. Earth attribute, level 6, machine. A mechanized iron doll with tremendous strength. 1900 attack, 2200 defense. It's pretty bad. Next up, Three-Headed Guido. Dark attribute, level 4, Fiend. A 3-headed nocturnal monster that is absolutely ruthless when fighting. 1200 attack, 1400 defense. I think they mean like Golem instead of doll, but this is a normal monster. We'll put it in normal tier. But very good artwork. The only reason why the early 2000s stats look so bad is that Summon Skull broke progression, and it's just a huge power spike that wasn't needed in the early sets. They should have waited to release Summon Skull until after they've gone through the 2000 attack level 5s, the 2100 attack level 5s, the 2600, not 26, all the way up to 2500. But they broke the progression system. Next up, Parasite Paraseed with the OCG artwork. Earth attribute, level 2. Insect, flip effect monster. Flip, put this card face up in your opponent's deck and shuffle it. When your opponent draws this card, it is special summoned to their side of the field in face up defense position and inflicts 1000 damage to them. Then, while this card is face up on the field, all monsters your opponent controls become insect type monsters. 500 attack, 300 defense. One of the weirdest cards in the entire game. And look at this artwork. I've actually seen it in a burn deck, in a meta relevant burn deck. So meta at one point, not for the cheesy Parasite Paraseed insect barrier, but this card is definitely a design mistake for many, many, many reasons. One of the things that would happen at the low-level tournaments is that if you played Parasite Paraseed, you might leave it in your opponent's deck, and then they go home with your card. And for the rest of the tournament, you're playing with an invalid deck because you're only playing 39 cards. This card doesn't work with card sleeves because your opponent's going to be able to see where it is. This card's difficult to even put into the deck and then fairly use. This card is really cool, but just not good design, and it's really sad. One of the most unique cards, but unique doesn't necessarily mean good. Okay. Design mistake for design, not power level. I think it's fair to put it in design mistake. This card just, you can't use it properly. Oh, it's a double design mistake because I don't even know how to pronounce the word. It's paraside, like side, not seed. Parasite, paraside. I don't know if that makes the card better or worse, but I've been mispronouncing it. I've been mispronouncing a ton of cards from my childhood, though. Unique doesn't necessarily mean good, is a lesson I had to learn in high school. I agree. Next up, 7 completed. Equip spell. Activate this card by choosing attack or defense. Equip only to a machine type monster. It gains 700 attack or defense depending on your choice. This card is so weird. Like, I think it's supposed to be more flexible than Axe of Despair, but we have Axe of Despair, so why would you ever use this card? Do you ever want 700 defense? Only on machines? I just don't understand. Todokite or Todokete. They have to release all of Yugi's original iconic monsters sooner than later, though. I guess so. And then Mystic Miner with, I always laugh picturing card designers making great cards like Jinzo alongside trash cards like these. I actually think that the OCG got a bit smoother, a bit smoother power progression, because a lot of the early sets were jumbled together. But next up, Light Force Sword, normal trap. Banish 1 random card from your opponent's hand face down. During your opponent's 4th standby phase after this card's activation, return that card to their hand. JP Lawrence points out it's in a Chung Ying banish deck. I think that's right. I honestly think that this is 1-for-1 hand disruption, and just going first and setting it isn't a great idea, but it's like borderline playable. I think it's in the realm of consideration. It has aged shockingly well. I know this is technically a -1 if the game lasts 4 turns, and is it going to last 4 turns? I don't think so. A 1-for-1 is a 1-for-1. And there's actually, I don't know if Anti is in this set, but Anti is 1-for-1 hand disruption, and it's really interesting design. But I don't see it in this set. So we'll get there soon. There's a lot of different 1-for-1 hand disruption, but next up, Chain Destruction. Normal trap. When a monster with 2,000 or less attack is summoned, target one of them. Destroy all cards with that name in its controller's hand and main deck. This card's been meta at one point. It's a real strong trap card. This is a great get out of jail card for certain decks. Like, they summon their linchpin monster, and then you just get rid of all the other ones. And then what are they going to do? Bombo Dogless. These are from Pharaoh's Servant. It's such a niche effect. Oh, it's really good, though. It's been in several meta deck lists that I've seen. So we've seen Light Force Sword. That's a 1-for-1. Time Seal is sort of a 1-for-1. This trap has the effect, skip the draw phase of your opponent's next turn. I can't believe this got off the ban list. I understand why it's off the ban list, but it's pretty dumb. I don't think it's worth considering today. It has been meta, but it might fit into gimmick potential now. It's really hard. I wouldn't mind if they just kept it banned forever because this card is just annoying and bad. Yeah, it was banned for longer than it had to be, but I can understand that so many people had a bad taste in their mouth that you probably don't want this in the game. I guess you can put it in gimmick. Is this good against Invoked? For Chain Disappearance, it's a trap card, so it's a little slow. But you're saying get out all their Alistairs? Can Invoked... You can recur Alistair, though, so it's not that good. You think meta at one point's the most appropriate position? Okay. Next up, Grave Robber. Normal trap, select one spell card from your opponent's graveyard. Then really weird wording on this. You can use it as your hand until the end of the turn. If you use it, you take 2,000 points of damage. Yeah, Grave Robber is very weird card. Would you ever play Grave Robber? Would you pay 2,000 life points to get back a Raigeki? It is relying on your opponent, but you are potentially getting something really good out of their graveyard. You're also potentially getting a ritual spell or something useful, or something useless like that. So, I don't know if it's good on release. I wouldn't say it's ever meta, but it's a decent card. What does use it as your hand mean? Do I lose my hand? Is it chopped off? Is it like a hook from Captain Hook? Not worth right now, but I can imagine it being good in some situations. Gimmick in early mill decks. Ooh, that's a good way of getting back your opponent's spells. I think I like it at good on release though, just for now. Next up, Gift of the Mystical Elf. It's got Mystical Elf on it. Normal trap. Increase your life points by 300 points for each monster on the field. I don't understand why this card is so bad. Like, it's only 300 points per monster, and granted it's all the monsters on the field, but Just Desserts is 500 points per monster. Just Desserts is a pretty good burn card. Even if this was like 500 points per monster, it'd still not be good. Wow, is that Mystical Elf from Mystical Elf? Indeed, it's not Dark Elf. Do you get to activate the card in the graveyard on their turn? I do not think so. I think Grave Robber, you activate it during your turn so that you can use the spell or pick up a quick play spell. It'd be interesting if it had additional effect. Potentially 3,000 life points right now. I don't think that's enough. Nutrient Z is 4,000 life points. Granted, it's more conditional, but 4,000 isn't enough. I think 5,000 might be worth considering. It's hard to say. Okay, next up, the Eye of Truth. Oh no. Which is blinding me. This card's so OP. It's minimizing my tabs. Okay, Eye of Truth, continuous trap. Your opponent must keep their hand revealed. During each of your opponent's standby phases, if they have a spell card in their hand, they gain 1,000 life points. Theoretically, this is not that bad. You're getting free information. Giving your opponent 1,000 life points isn't that bad of a detriment. I mean, you'd play Snatch Steal, you'd play Upstart Goblin, and that's not even going to happen all the time. You are definitely using a card for it, though. Just because it's continuous doesn't mean it's not a card that you're using. Rain McKnight says, hello, hello. I think Eye of Truth would actually be overpowered if it were a skill card, but I don't like it the way it is. It's just so hard to use. The game's too fast for it. It's funny because you can use it to stop cards that have to reveal themselves for cost, but it's still not good. Ooh, there is niche application. You get the bonus effect of playing as Pegasus. No, Pegasus knows your face downs too. This is way too slow and way too minor to be useful. I agree. There's actually Ceremonial Bell that you could normal summon and then both players show off their hands, which is a little bit better. If it was a continuous spell though, it would be playable. It would definitely be very playable as a continuous spell. I'm glad it's not. Next up, Dust Tornado. Normal trap. Target one spell or trap your opponent controls, destroy that target. Then you can set one spell or trap from your hand. That second effect is always so weird. I don't understand it. There's very niche things that you can do with that second effect. You can get Ultimaya Zulkin out and then set from your hand during your opponent's turn to get another monster out of your extra deck, which is actually a pretty strong effect. But that's a super gimmick application. You can play around Heavy Storm by keeping your valuable things in your hand until you need them. Of course, if you're playing around Heavy Storm, then you're targeting like Heavy Storm for destruction? And then the chain will resolve backwards? Zulkin misses the timing? Oh no. Oh no, that's bad. There is no gimmick potential for it then. I did not realize that Zulkin wasn't a mandatory effect. Use Trap Trick for Zulkin. That's probably better. I think like Cyber Gardena might be an option that you can use because it resets itself for Scrap Iron Scarecrow, but I guess I just gotta look up the rulings list for Zulkin. Next up, Call of the Haunted. Continuous trap. Activate this card by targeting one monster in your graveyard. Special summon that target in attack position. When this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. When that monster is destroyed, destroy this card. So, Call of the Haunted has some weird wording if you didn't catch it. Like, you can tribute the monster and then you can keep your Call of the Haunted on the field. Is that useful? Maybe. Maybe. I mean, you could synchro with your monster also and then have Call of the Haunted on the field and then play Anteater Eating Ant or pop it with Astraltopia. I don't know. Potential use, but Call of the Haunted, really good card. Even banned at one point. So strong. It's broken with Genzo. Ooh. Is it broken with Genzo? You can Call of the Haunted to bring out your Genzo, but then when the destruction effect on Call of the Haunted would resolve, it would resolve in the graveyard though, right? And if it's resolving in the graveyard, it'd take Genzo with it. Giant Trinade sorta works with Call of the Haunted. It's gonna destroy your monster though. It's not Premature Burial, which is actually in this set. Premature Burial, so much stronger. For all the wrong reasons. What's not stronger is Solomon's Law Book. Normal trap, skip your next standby phase. Oof. I don't know if there's even a gimmick that you can use with Solomon's Law Book. In this set specifically, There's a few cards that have maintenance costs that you might want to skip your own standby phase, but it's still not good. It's nowhere close to good. There's no utility in it right now. I think this is one of the least impactful cards in the game. Skipping phases is not an effect that should exist. Well, if it's your own phases, I don't feel so bad. But like skipping your opponent's draw phase, horrible. They had a skill that skipped the standby phase in Duel Links, and then they nerfed it. Oh. I think skill cards are a little bit apples to oranges because skill cards aren't an active resource that you have to use. I know there's an opportunity cost because you can only get one skill card, but Solomon's Lawbook is not that powerful. You could use it to help your opponent win faster. Or maybe you could use it with DDDs? I guess you could use it with the maintenance cost for the chessboard Archfiends, but then you got Pandemonium. The only gimmick I can think of is a cost/effect that resolves during the standby phase. Skipping phases and turns causes a ton of rulings to be needed. Certain effects that should float simply never resolve. Ooh. Is Solomon's Lawbook a design mistake? Because it's starting to sound that way. Which is dumb if one of the worst cards in the game is also a design mistake. Next up, Earthshaker. Normal trap, select 2 monster card attributes. Your opponent then selects one of the 2 attributes and destroys all face-up monsters with that attribute on the field. I like this card. I like this card a lot. I think it would fit into filler outclassed or good on release at the very best, but I like this effect at least. Solomon's Lawbook. I think it's going all the way to the top, which is, it's just silly. Next up, Enchanted Javelin. Normal trap, increase your life points by the attack of one attacking monster. This card's really weird. Like, the effect is not good. I think there's a direct upgrade with Draining Shield because Draining Shield would negate the effect. I think the official tip card for this would say that you use this when your opponent attacks into your defense position monster so that you gain the life points, but then it's just a life point gain card. It's not good. Ooh, Solomon's Lawbook plus Mirage of Nightmare is broken. I think the real problem is just Mirage of Nightmare is broken. I mean, we were running emergency provisions just because it was such a broken card. Okay. Next up, Mirror Wall. Continuous Trap. Halve the attack of your opponent's attacking monsters. Once per turn, during your standby phase, pay 2,000 life points or destroy this card. Hey, it's optional. I don't know. It's not that bad, because, like, Wall of Revealing Light, which we get later, is pretty good. Wall of Revealing Light is a one-time cost, though. It's not 2,000 points. Halve is pronounced. Halve? I agree. I think the best part of Mirror Wall is that it's optional, right? Pay 2,000 life points or destroy this card. You get a choice. Halve is pronounced the same as have. Ooh, learning English is hard. I'm not sure it's the best even as a single use card. I think you're better off using Wabaku, because Wabaku would mean you keep all your monsters. I guess you could use this as a battle trick where your opponent's attacking into your monster and then you go, haha, surprise! But like, when we get Fairy Box is a much better card for that. But we're not at Fairy Box yet. Imagine pulling up in 2004, you get styled on by Solomon's Lawbook and Mirage of Nightmare. It is kind of like Shrink. And Shrink was a meta card. Is this a one-time use Shrink? I think Shrink's better because it's got more utility. Shrink is a quick play spell, so you could theoretically use it on your own turn to help push damage. I think Filler Outclassed is pretty good. Maybe good on release. Except not good on release because they have Genzo now. Next up, Gust. Normal trap. You can activate this card when one or more of your spell cards are destroyed and sent from the field to the graveyard by a card effect your opponent controls. Destroy one spell or trap card on the field. We have Dust Tornado in this set. This card is pretty bad. We also have Mystical Space Typhoon, but Mystical Space Typhoon goes to 1. I don't know if it's Filler Outclassed or just flat out bad, but we'll keep it in bad for now. This card has a counterpart though. Actually, a lot of cards in this set have counterparts. Driving Snow, normal trap. You can only activate this card when one or more of your trap cards are destroyed and sent from the field to the graveyard by a card effect your opponent controls. Destroy one spell or trap on the field. I actually think that this one's worse than Gust. Maybe not. They're both very bad though. You can use Shrink to dodge Bottomless Trap Hole. That's some next level play. Shrink definitely does have more utility then. Next up, Armored Glass. You can activate this normal trap. You can activate this card when a monster is equipped with an equipped magic card. Negate the effects of all equipped magic cards on the field during the turn this card is activated. I don't understand this card. It's real bad. It's real bad. I think we get Eternal Rest. If not in this set, in a couple sets, and just Eternal Rest is such a better card. And even then, Eternal Rest is a really niche card. I like the design. There's I wouldn't say a whole cycle of these, but there are several related cards. Next up being World Suppression. Normal trap. You can only activate this card when a field spell is activated. Negate the field spell card during the turn this card is activated. It's not negate and destroy, so it's just turn it off for one turn. Which is not a good effect, but I like it. I like having it in the game, not necessarily using it. This is followed by Mystic Probe, normal trap. You can activate this card when a continuous magic card is activated. Negate all continuous magic cards during the turn this card is activated. Another one. At least this one turns off multiple continuous spells. Ooh, you can use World Suppression on Mystic Mine to turn it off for one turn. I guess you can. And I think with the new field spell rule, then you can even use your own field spell and then negate both of them. You can use Armored Glass to stop your opponent equipping you with Paralyzing Potion or Ekibio Drakmord. Technically you can, but do you want to use that when you can just use Mystical Space Typhoon? Funny, it doesn't have a counter. Oh, it doesn't. It's not like a normal counter trap. All these cards are power crept by that Virus Cannon card that has all the effects in one. Indeed. Next up, Metal Detector. Normal trap. You can activate this card when a continuous trap card is activated. Negate all continuous traps during the turn this card is activated. I just don't understand why you'd ever play these. They're not good. They're anime cards is what they are. Like, aha! You have fallen into my trap. Next up, Numinous Healer. This is one of the collect 'em all cards, and in theory these are interesting. Like in Magic the Gathering, you have collect 'em all cards where you can play 4 copies in your deck, so you get up to 4 as a bonus, but in Yu-Gi-Oh! You can only play 3 copies. And in addition, in Magic, certain cards bypass deck building limitations, so you can actually play like 40 copies of Relentless Rats in your deck if you want to. So I like the idea of collect 'em all cards, but I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh! The set of mechanics is conducive to the collect them all cards, because you're only going to be getting like a benefit of 1 or 2 at the most. But what is that benefit? Like, what is the grand payoff of having 3 of these in your deck? Numinous Healer is a normal trap. You can only activate this card when you take damage to your life points. Increase your life points by 1,000 points. Also, increase your life points by 500 points for each Numinous Healer in your graveyard. So, this is conditional Dian Keto Cure Master that has the upside of being red medicine after you've already used one of these. So after you've already gone -1, you can go -1 again and have an extra 500 life points, and you can go -1 a second or a third time, and then it would be a double Dian Keto. This card is so underwhelming, I don't understand it. It might be one of the worst healing cards we've encountered so far. It's worse than Gifted the Mystical Elf. Hey, who cares about going -1 when you get to go +1,000? Oh, it's all about perspective. Life points equals cards. Oh, Bombo Douglas comes in with the insight. It's so that kids want to collect more cards. This card is buy more cards. Excellent from the marketing perspective. It works so much better in other games, though, I think. I think the only exception to collect 'em all that works in this game is Good Goblin Housekeeping. And that's because it's the number in your graveyard +1. So it starts off being okay. Be the first on your block to collect all the Numinous Healers. More like numerous healers. Okay, Malicious is a collect 'em all card. I agree. Malicious is definitely the best. I guess Reborn Tengu is a collect 'em all card too. And Toon Table of Contents is a collect 'em all card. I don't know. It's weird when cards reference themselves. Where's the line? Gather your mind? I guess there are more examples. Next up, Appropriate. Not appropriate, appropriate. Continuous trap. Activate only when your opponent draws the cards outside of their draw phase. After that, each time your opponent draws a cards outside their draw phase, immediately draw 2 cards. I mean, it's got serious gimmick potential. It's always on the edge of playable, and sometimes you'll see it in side decks. But this card is just so awkward because you have to have your opponent draw cards and it can miss the timing, so you can't activate it all the time. And then, like, it's just, ooh. Toon Table of Contents was probably not intended to be a collect them all. I agree. It's probably an oversight because Toon Table of Contents is ridiculously good. Either it could have been a once per turn or said except Toon Table of Contents, or maybe not have Toon in its name. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that you could have fixed that. I definitely agree it's not an intended function. Next up, Forced Requisition. Trap card, Continuous Trap. You can activate this card when you discard from your hand. After that, each time you discard from your hand, your opponent must also discard the same number of cards from his or her hand. This card's not bad. I don't know. I think it just goes right next to Appropriate. Like, if you're in a deck that discards already, a Dark World, a Fabled, a Danger, then this card's pretty strong. You could potentially deplete a lot of cards from your opponent's hand, but it's on a trap, so. One of the things that you can do with Appropriate, one of the many things you can do with Appropriate, is force your opponent to draw cards with, like, Chainsaw Insect or the Bistro Butcher or some other options. There's a lot of gimmicks that come from Appropriate. They're just all really hard and not good. Shared Ride is basically better, but still not good. I think like Droll and Lockbird is definitely better. I know it's not quite the same effect, but it would be interesting in Dark World. I can see it having some experimentation, but how does Forced Requisition interact with Hand Destruction? Well, Hand Destruction sends from hand, not discard. How does it interact with Card Destruction, though, I guess, is the real question. Can you force your opponent to discard all the cards they just drew? Because Card Destruction would be discard, then draw, and then they'd be forced to discard, or would they be forced to discard when they have no cards? I agree. Actual Toon decks playing two Toon tables in one turn, not that bad. I am really excited because I'm gonna make a Toon deck specifically for GOAT format. I haven't gotten the ideas quite together yet, but still, there's some really interesting things that we can do with the Toons. I'm thinking Pandemonium and then Toon Summon Skull have a pretty decent interaction together, because if the Toon Summon Skull self-destructs because of Toon World, then you'd be able to search for a level 5 or lower Archfiend monster. I'm having trouble making it all work because the deck right now is incredibly greedy, and I recognize that, but the gears are turning. It's Toons are gonna be fun at the very least. Appropriate plus Chainsaw Insect, broken combo. Maybe in the video games, but probably not in real life. IIRC, Forced Requisition can only be activated when discarding by an effect and not a cost, which I think really limits its applications. I agree, but in Dark World decks specifically, you are discarding as an effect most of the time. I don't know if Toon Summon Skull should be considered an Archfiend in GOAT format. I know it would be in Japan. I don't know when it got the errata in this country. So, like, I'm going to count it. I agree. Forced Requisition and Appropriate, biggest hurdle is that they're trap cards, at least in the modern game. Next up, DNA Surgery, Continuous Trap. Activate this card by declaring one monster type. All face-up monsters on the field become that type. There's some fun stuff that you can do with it, but it's never worth a card. Like, one of the silly things that you can do with it is turn Cyberstein into a psychic monster, and then with Brain Research Lab, you can just pay life points, and because now it's a psychic monster, you don't really have to worry about it, and bring out all the fusion monsters. There's some dumb stuff that you can do with this card, but I don't know. Ooh, you could use it to power up your Buster Blader. Sorta. I mean, on field, it'd be okay. I guess with the card that we saw a couple sets ago, you could make everything dragons and then be able to destroy one of your opponent's dragons. I think Gimmick's okay. I know Gimmick's a little bit of a cop-out, but some of these cards are more interesting than they are good. Like this one. DNA and Insect Barrier are a broken combo. Oh, isn't Insect Barrier in this set? Yeah, Insect Barrier's in the set, plus Parasite are in there. I don't know if it's broken. It's definitely something that you can do, though. I'm still going to say that's a gimmick. Next up, the Regulation of Tribe, Continuous Trap. Declare one type of monster. Monsters of the declared type cannot attack. Tribute one monster from your side of the field during each of your standby phases. If you do not, this card is destroyed. I think that's another optional one. I don't think that this is a gimmick. I think it's just bad. If it was... It's kind of good for one use at least. I guess it's similar to Mirror Wall for that reason, but it's definitely worse than Mirror Wall because you'd prefer to have the attack points rather than stop one type from attacking. Yeah, tributing every turn is way too high a cost. Theoretically, it's okay. I think it's another choice, though, that you don't have to tribute, that you can just destroy the card, and then maybe it is okay. Worse than Mirror Wall, Regulation got power crept in the same set. Oh, yeah. I think Mirror Wall might have been power crept by Wabaku 2 sets ago. But next up, Backup Soldier. Normal trap. While there are 5 or more monsters in your graveyard, target up to 3 non-effect monsters with 1500 or less attack in your graveyard. Add them to your hand. This is I wouldn't say a staple in Exodia, but certain Exodia decks are designed to get the 5, well, not all 5 pieces, the 4 normal monsters into the graveyard and then bring them back with Backup Soldier, and I think Dark Eruption's another option that you can use. Non-effect is really interesting. Could you get ritual monsters back with this? I don't know if you'd want to. Wasn't Backup Soldier on the ban list? Yeah, it was. I think it just goes in meta. There's a lot of fun things that you can do with Backup Soldier. Theoretically, normal monsters could be good on their own, like just for card advantage. Tenyi. Yeah, it got semi-limited way back when. Power crept by Dark Factory of Mass Production. Ooh. So, Dark Factory of Mass Production is easier to activate, less restricted in what you can get, but the ceiling's a little lower. So, I don't know if I'd say that it's actually power crept. Next up, Major Riot, Normal Trap. You can activate this card when 1 or more of your monsters are returned from the field to your hand by your opponent's card effect. Return all monster cards on the field to their respective hands. Both you and your opponent can then special summon from your hand the same number of monster cards on the field in face down defense position. Why? Why would you use this? So you attack into their Hane Hane or their Wall of Illusion, and then you'd like reset the board? I don't understand the utility of this card. As a trap, you can chain Backup Soldier to a DD Crow type effect. Well, we're not to DD Crow quite yet, but theoretically, yes. Actually, I think Disappear might be in this set or in a future set. Same thing with Soul Release. So we're not too far off of that as far as a use for Backup Soldier. Next up, Ceasefire. If a face-down defense position monster or an effect monster is on the field, change all face-down defense position monsters on the field to face-up defense position. Flip effect monsters' effects are not activated at this time. Really important line of text. Also inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent for each effect monster on the field. Ceasefire was at 1 for such a long time. This is a burn staple? Yeah, Jace said it exactly. It's even got a little bit more utility than just being a burn card, because you can stop flip effects with it, and I like that a lot. I think the Japanese name is a little bit different than Ceasefire. It's not necessarily talking about forming an armistice, it's more like redistributing. It's more like a treaty after you've finished and now you're divvying up the spoils of war with your opponent. I mean, I could see it being when your opponent attacks, stop the attack. That would be a better card, an even better version of Ceasefire. Maybe it's not that way for balance. Next up, Light of Intervention. Continuous trap. Monster cards cannot be set face down. Monsters set in defense position are normal summoned in face-up defense position. What a weird card. What a really, really weird card. So we have Last Warrior from Another Planet, which prevents summoning, but it doesn't prevent setting. So if you would take Light of Intervention and Last Warrior from Another Planet, then you can stop your opponent from summoning and setting? I really have been thinking about this for quite some time, that what if Yu-Gi-Oh! Allowed you to normal summon in defense position? How much would that change the game? Because that is how it works in the anime, and it would make certain cards better. Like Defense Draw would be a better card if you could just normal summon in defense position. But I don't know if there'd be wider ramifications for it. It is definitely a gimmick, specifically when you interact with Last Warrior from Another Planet. And I think that's about as high as it gets. Normal summoning the set monsters is a very weird effect, I know. How does this work with... I don't know. How does this work with monsters that reset themselves, like Swarm of Scarabs? And is there any use for this card in like Morphtronics, maybe? Yeah, 90% of decks would not care at all. There are certain Floodgate monsters that are sort of balanced with low attack and high defense. I agree. Like Banisher of Light, not Banisher of Radiance. Banisher of Light, it's just got 2000 defense. Ooh, you'd be able to normal summon your Ceremonial Bell in defense position and then get the symmetric hand reading effect. I don't know. I think I'm going to do a What If Wednesday on what if we made this tiny change into the game. Of course, speaking of Ceremonial Bell, we actually have a card with a very similar effect coming up. We have Respect Play, Continuous Trap. During their respective turn, each player must show their opponent their hand. Very interesting wording. So you activate this during your opponent's turn, you get to see their hand. But then if you can destroy it, or if it gets removed from the field before your turn, then they don't get to see your hand. Is this ever useful? I don't think so. All these continuous traps, though, I think like maybe you could use them with the divine beasts. Maybe. That's reaching. That's super reaching. Respect play, respective turn. Oh, that's brilliant. Respect play, respective turn. Good call, Squid. Okay. Next up, there are just weird cards all over this set. They must have been like up to something while designing, because next up we have magical hats. Normal trap. During your opponent's battle phase, choose 2 spell/trap cards from your deck and 1 monster you control. Special summon them as normal monsters with attack and defense of 0 in face down defense position. Set the chosen monster as if it were face up and set the chosen monster if it is face up and shuffle them on the field. The 2 cards chosen from your deck are destroyed at the end of the battle phase and cannot remain on the field except during the battle phase. Wow. It is the OG Foolish Burial Goods. You'd play it in Harpy Ladies, you'd want to get like your hysteric party into the graveyard, and this was probably the best way to do it. Gear Town. Oh yeah. Pick Gear Town, get Ancient Gadgetron, Ancient Gear Gadgetron Dragon, the big one. It's a pretty good card. It's just so weird. Floanderies would probably be able to set up boards that are way harder to subtract life points from. The barrier statues in particular would be slightly better in defense position. Yeah, there are a lot of ramifications that would happen from just even Light of Revealing Light. What is the name of the card? I have lost it. Light of Intervention as a skill card. There are a lot of ramifications from it. I think that is an enormous question as far as the design of magical hats. Why not just summon tokens? I guess that would ruin the point though, because it's like, where are they? But magical hats is a weird card. Next up, Nobleman of Crossout. Normal spell. Target 1 face down monster on the field. Destroy that target. And if you do, banish it. Then, if it was a flip monster, each player reveals their main deck, then banishes all cards from it with that monster's name. This card was definitely meta for a long time, back when setting was more relevant. Its companion, though, Nobleman of Extermination, not so much. Normal spell. Select, destroy, and remove from play 1 face-down spell or trap. If it was a trap card, both players must remove from play all copies of that card from their decks. This card still saw meta success, though. It's a really interesting effect. I think it's ahead of its time as far as banishing cards, but very fun. Nobleman of Extermination can give you deck knowledge. I think it can now. I think the card needs an erratum to fix that. Extermination is so bad once you learn about the ruling change to it. Okay, so like Nobleman of Crossout specifically lets you validate your opponent's deck. Nobleman of Extermination doesn't? Weird little rulings. Next up, the Shallow Grave. Each player targets one monster in their graveyard. Each player special summons that target from the graveyard in face-down defense position. Oh, wow. Squid says, if you chain the card Extermination is targeting, then it isn't destroyed. Oh, wow. It's like Night Beam. It's bad like Night Beam. That is bad. The Shallow Grave is also bad for different reasons. I can't ever think of a time when this is useful. Like, you're giving your opponent a special summon from grave. I know it's a special set from grave, but when is that useful? When is it worth more for you to set a monster from grave than giving your opponent a plus one that gives them board presence? I just can't imagine a situation where it's really worth it. You can use it on your first turn. Can you, though? Each player targets one monster in their own graveyard. I think you need to have both of them in the graveyard. I think it's a hard requirement that both players have to have a target engraved to even use a card. I'm just gonna put it in bad. I think it's bad. Nope, both players need at least one monster in the graveyard. Yeah, that's what I thought. So you could potentially activate it on the first turn, but like you'd have to make your opponent discard cards or something. We do need, or at least Foolish Burial, not Foolish Burial. I've already lost the name. The Shallow Grave does need an erratum. Could it be useful in like Subterrors? And still probably not worth it. I mean, even if you got back like the best flip effect monsters, if you got Morphing Jar or Cyber Jar or Fiber Jar or Pot of Taboos, I still don't think it's worth it. But back on topic. Next up is Premature Burial. Spell, equip spell. Activate this card by paying 800 life points. Then target one monster in your graveyard. Special summon that target in attack position and equip it with this card. When this card is destroyed, destroy the equipped monster. Can you see the problem? Okay, you might not catch it on the first reading, but you can bounce this card to hand and it won't destroy the monster. It's only when this card is destroyed. It's really, really strong effect. Premature Burial is crazy. Another card that is busted because of equip support. Oh, right. You can use Hidden Armory to bring out your one. Swords at Dawn's actually real good with it. You can use Giant Trinade with it. Combine the Shallow Grave with DD Trap Hole. But again, only in specific scenarios. Shallow Grave is just bad in general. Arms Hole. I couldn't remember the English name, Hidden Armory. I love the idea of Premature because it's similar to cards like Animate Dead from Magic the Gathering, but it's so much more broken here than it is in Magic. I do too. Like Monster Reborn is probably the closest analog to Animate Dead, but Premature Burial, very fun. By the way, if you look up Premature Burial online, it'll actually direct you to an execution method. So not resurrecting people, but that's how they used to execute people. Just putting them in the grave and just walking away. Very odd name. I think this card might have had an erratum, but I'm not sure. Inspection's a continuous spell. During your opponent's standby phase, you can pay 500 life points to randomly select one card in your opponent's hand and look at it. I think this was changed to a once per turn effect, but it might not. So one of the things that you can do with this, or at least you could, was just keep paying life points, and I guess you'd gain a little bit of information each time, but then you could use Reversal Quiz and like Fuma Shuriken or I'm getting cracked up. Or Black Pendant to deal the last bit of damage after you exchange life points with your opponent. It's not good. I don't think it even works like that anymore. If it no longer allows you to pay, as many life points as you want, then it's very bad. Otherwise, it's, I guess, gimmick. Or even in gimmick, it's very bad. Medieval-style executions were apparently cruel as a way to get people to respect rule of law. Without police, you can't actually catch criminals, but you can set a brutal example. Wow. That is very well phrased and absolutely terrifying. To the lighter side, you can use Solomon's Law Book with inspection to prevent your opponent from gaining information, I guess? Ooh, the cost is 500, and it's an effect that activates on the field, so it can be stopped, and you pay the cost. Oh yeah. I'm just gonna say it's very bad. But it might be like an upgrade from the inexperienced spy, potentially? Like slightly better than that. Next up, Prohibition. Continuous spell. Activate by declaring one card name. Cards with that name and their effects cannot be used. Cards already on the field are not affected, including face-down cards. So, how does everyone feel about like first turn Prohibition in game 2 or game 3, where you already know what your opponent's deck is, and you're just trying to get that one card blind, not exactly a blind guess, but think about where your opponent's linchpin monster is and preemptively hit it. I'm just trying to think, is Prohibition worth considering today? It's definitely been in a lot of side decks. I think it's worth considering today in the side deck specifically. It's only really good in Mystic Mindburn. That's true. There's you have to have certainty. You have to have the hardest read on your opponent for it to be great. Maybe if you can look at their hand and then use it, it'd be pretty strong. But on its own, I think maybe a little bit too weak to see play. Historically, though, it's had a lot of success. Next up, Morphing Jar number 2. Earth Attribute, level 3, Rock, Flip Effect. Flip. Shuffle all monsters on the field into the deck. Then each player excavates cards from the top of their deck until they excavate the same number of monsters they shuffled into their main deck. Special summon all excavated level 4 or lower monsters in face down defense position. Also send the remaining cards to the graveyard. 800 attack, 700 defense. This card, it's a design mistake. This card's really good at milling. Like really, really good at milling. Prohibition is always that one side deck card that can be very busted if played correctly. I think it might be one of those skill testing cards. Like, the better you know your opponent, the better you read, the better you are at understanding the matchup, the better Prohibition is. If Prohibition could stop Max C, it would be worth considering, though. I think there's other ways that you can stop Max C now. Like Call from the Grave. Morphing Jar number 2. Very busted. Can cause a bunch of infinite loops. Such a potent effect. Non-targeting shuffle on a flip monster. Not to mention the milling it causes. Morphing Jar number 2 allows cheating by setting high-level monsters before flipping it. When your opponent hits you with Morphing Jar, the game state might undergo a jarring morph. Excellent. Excellent. I'm very glad that we got Morphing Jar the original in the tournament pack, because it'd be really awkward if Morphing Jar 2 came out first. It did for me, at least, because I didn't know what tournament packs are. I still don't know how you get tournament packs. So, my first introduction was definitely with the number 2 one. Where's Morphing Jar number 1? I saw it in the anime. Next up, Flame Champion. Fire attribute, level 5, Pyro, a warrior protected by a flaming shield that nullifies any attack. 1900 attack, 1300 defense. Put him in bad. Put him next to Steel Ogre of the Grotto. Number 2. A lot of underwhelming normal monsters still. And it's all the Summon Skull. Nullify any attack? That sounds broken. Well, we got Negate attack. But we can't give normal monsters effect. These aren't pendulums. Twin-headed Fire Dragon is a fire attribute, level 6, Pyro. 2 dragons fused as one from the effects of the Big Bang. Does that imply that they existed before the Big Bang? 2200 attack, 1700 defense. Put him with the normal monsters. Jarma number 2 is also part of the Chaos archetype, since this Japanese name is Chaos Pod. Wow. I did not realize it had a different name. Canonically, the oldest 2 dragons. Now, are they 2 dragons or are they just 1? Questions science still can't answer. I think 2000 attack is not redeeming quality at this point on any level 5 or higher monster. I think it's got to be 2500 just to compete with it. Next up, Darkfire Soldier number 1. Dark attribute. Dark attribute. Fire attribute. Reading the wrong part of the name. Fire attribute, level 4, Pyro. An explosive expert from a special elite force. 1700 attack, 1150 defense. At least 3-headed Guido gets some company. Next up, Mr. Volcano. But I actually have a fake version of this, and his name is Mr. Porcano. And I just think that that's cute. Fire attribute, level 5, Pyro. This seemingly mild-mannered creature has an extremely volatile temper. 2100 attack, 1300 defense. It's got nice swooshy hair that I like. And it goes with the other Pyros. Are all the high-level monsters in this set Pyro for some reason? I guess Pyro was just being underrepresented. Level 5 is just strange. Need to find what monsters are actually good level 5s. Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's a little bit weird that 5 and 6 both require 1 tribute. Because then, shouldn't all monsters be level 6? Shouldn't 5s be weaker until we get to like Synchros and XEs and stuff? Isn't it weird that the Darkfire Soldiers aren't number 1 and number 2, but the first Morphing Jar has no number? I misread that. Isn't it weird that the Darkfire Soldiers are number 1 and number 2, but the first Morphing Jar has no number, but a number 2 counterpart. Ooh, that's a head scratcher. I think that's just bad regionalization, because we learned a couple minutes ago that it's called Chaos Pod in Japan. Fire had a lot of support. I'm not sure this counts as support. Fire had a lot of cards. Mr. Porcano sounds like an Applebee's appetizer. I agree. Early game design in Yu-Gi-Oh! Totally crazy. Anything goes. I think it's because Kazuki Takahashi is an anime writer, but not necessarily a manga writer, but not necessarily a game designer at that point. It's a role that I don't think he asked to be in, but he accepted gracefully eventually, I think. Next up, Darkfire Soldier number 2. Fire attribute, level 4, Pyro. A warrior who gained immeasurable power from the heart of a volcano. 1700 attack, 1100 defense. This card is strictly worse than Darkfire Soldier number 1, which is really weird, because it's got 50 less defense points and the same amount of attack points. I have no idea why. How many people are behind making the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game these days? I've been really curious. I also want to know where I can apply. I would unironically love it if one card of every set was just the next version of a number monster. Like the newest set comes out and it has Winged Dragon, Guardian of the Fortress, number 284. You must be from the far future. Next up, Kisei Itai. Next up, Kisei Itai. Kisei Itai? It's okay. When I cut it up, I'll get it right the first time. Kisei Itai is Dark Attribute, level 2, Fiend effect monster. When your opponent's monster attacks this card in face-down defense position, this card becomes an equipped spell, equipped to the attacking monster. No damage calculation is conducted. During each of your opponent's standby phases, increase your life points by half of the attack of the monster equipped with this card. 300 attack, 800 defense. So, Japanese name is a little bit clearer about what this is. This is a mind parasite. But I like the artwork so much because it's like, nah, no you don't. I just think it's really cute. There was a Jinzo. Indeed, there is a Jinzo. I love how a lot of normal monsters back then were always the strongest or invincible. Someone's exaggerating. Maybe they get to write their own description text. I bet Goblin Calligrapher at the very least got to. Where's Jinzo number 2 through 6? That is true. Oh, Jinzo number 5. I don't understand the Jinzo number 5. The one that can attack directly. Oh, and it was introduced first. Jinzo 5 came out before normal Jinzo. That is weird. I like how you don't equip this card. It just instantly becomes an equip card. I think it's a little bit too awkward to use. I mean, your opponent's just going to activate Nobleman of Crossout, and then what? Oh, yeah. Jinzo's name in Japanese is Jinzo Nigen Saiko Shaka. So, I think it's man-made android psychic shocker in Japanese. Jinzo, great candidate for a psychic monster, by the way, based on Psycho Mantis in the Metal Gear series. But we didn't have psychic set, so he's a machine. And that means he actually benefits from a lot of machine support, and that's part of the reason why it was so broken. Next up, Cyber Falcon. Wind attribute, level 4, Machine. A jet-powered hawk that travels at the speed of sound. 1400 attack, 1200 defense. Put him in normal tier. I don't know, is Jinzo number 5 even in the Jinzo archetype? That's a question. Kisatai is like a reverse Scythe, but retro. Lol. That's a brand new sentence. I don't think anyone's ever said that before. Next up, Flying Kamakiri number 2. Wind attribute, level 4, Insect. A flying mantis that feeds primarily on insects. Ooh, cannibal. 1500 attack, 800 defense. So one of the cool things is Flying Kamakiri number 1 is an elemental floater monster that can actually float into Flying Kamakiri number 2, which is good, I think. I mean, you'd never do that, but it's something that you can do. Next up, this card has had name-changing errata. So this used to be called Harpy's Brother, but now it's called Sky Scout. It's a wind attribute, level 4, winged beast. With eyes like a hawk and a flying speed exceeding Mach 5, this monster is a master of the sky. 1800 attack, 600 defense. This is the reason why all old Harpy cards have to say except Harpy's Brother because of poor regionalization. I guess it's okay on release. Ooh. Flying Kamakiri number 2 comes in to eat the dead body of the Kamakiri number 1. Ooh, are they mates? I agree. Harpy's Brother or Sky Scout, it's a decent beat stick, but you got Mechanical Chaser at this point. At least Cyber Falcon has some cool artwork, and the whole this card is not treated as a cyber card stuff. Oh, I did not realize that. Cyber Falcon is not part of the cyber archetype, I guess. Harpy the Jam. We're just adding cards to be even more broken. Harpy the Jam would be banned instantly. Next up, Buster Blader. We talked about DNA surgery a little bit earlier, and this is the card that came up. It's Earth attribute, level 7, warrior effect. Gains 500 attack for each dragon monster your opponent controls or is in their graveyard. 2600 attack, 2300 defense. I think Red Eye's Darkness Metal Dragon, no, not Metal Dragon. I think Red Eye's Darkness Dragon is a little bit better as far as this effect, but Buster Blader has a lot going for it. Like, it's a fusion material for Dark Paladin, so you can fetch it with a whole bunch of different cards. The ultimate grass counter card. I think I think it's filler outclassed. I don't think you're running Buster Blader for any reason. I always got very confused about the accept XXX card stuff. It would have been game breaking to be connected to Frog the Jam or other similar cards. It wouldn't have been game breaking to be connected to Frog the Jam or other similar cards considering they are normals. I don't know if they'd be broken, but because of regional parity. If you could do something in the TCG they couldn't do in the OCG, that might be considered broken for some people. It's good against Blue Eyes. Oh, I agree, it's good against Blue Eyes. Do you even play the Buster Blader in like the Buster Blader deck? You just play the retrain in that deck. You don't play the original, right? They just want OCG parity whenever possible, but at the same time, they refuse to change the card names at that time. Yeah, that's weird. I guess you'd have to reprint a lot of product. And every time a card gets errata, it's really hard because not everyone's going to have the internet, and not everyone's going to know that there was even a change. I know Buster Blader is an okay deck, but do you even play the original one? And is the question. There are ridiculous ruling discrepancies. The game is messy, and it's just because it's long and hard to manage. There's a lot of moving parts. You're right. Emblem of Dragon Slaying specifically searches the original, so at the very least you got a decent search card. The retrain does not totally replace it. Cool. Ruling differences are one thing, but I think it's reasonable for the actual card text to be identical between languages. Sometimes that's really difficult because of language-specific interactions. Like, I know the Lightsworns were really difficult to regionalize in Spanish because you had to deal with male and female forms of words, and it made it really confusing for the Lightsworns. But next is Michizure. It's a normal trap. When a monster is sent from the field to your graveyard, even during the damage step, target one monster on the field. Destroy it. So this card has a Japanese name that roughly translates to follow me or come along with me. I think this is real good, at least on release. This is removal. It's pretty good removal. It's conditional. It's not as good as like Fisher. Is it as good as Fisher? I don't know. It might not be as good as Treple, but I think it's at least good for the time period we're in. I wouldn't be surprised if at one point this snuck its way into a meta deck that I might have missed. Next up, Minor Goblin Official. This name has always troubled me. What does that mean? Is that like a low-ranking goblin official? I don't know. Just Minor Goblin Official, continuous trap. You can only activate this card when your opponent's life points are 3,000 or less. Inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent's life points during each of his or her standby phases. Why? I don't understand this effect. I think it's actually better than Gift of the Mystical Elf, because this at least does something, but it's dead for so long. Potentially this could finish off your opponent in 6 turns, but I don't know. Maybe it goes all the way up to fill or outclass, because at least it does something. I guess if Eye of Truth is in here, and yeah, we'll put Minor Goblin Official. At least it's a burn card. It's like a burn card that was built to not be used in burn decks. It's true. A lot of burn decks burst down. I'm thinking Chain Strike mainly is good for bursting down. Next up, this is potentially one of the worst cards in the game. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Gamble is a normal trap. You can only activate this card when your opponent's hand is 6 or more cards, and your hand is 2 or less. Toss a coin and call heads or tails. If you call it right, draw until your hand has 5 cards. If you call it wrong, skip your next turn. Skip your next turn means you lose the game. I know it doesn't exactly say that, but in the modern game, you activate this card. If you lose a coin flip, you lose the game. And the activation condition is just so hard to actually pull off. There are much better cards like Bubble Crash, which has a similar idea when your opponent's way in the lead. But, this is not Bubble Crash. At least Bubble Crash saw a little bit of competitive success. It's not worth the gamble. It is not worth the gamble. The upside is not you win the game. Ooh, am I confusing Heavy Slump and Bubble Crash? I might be confused. You can fulfill the activation condition by set 5, pass, and chaining it to card draw. Yes? You can activate it if your opponent uses Pot of Greed the turn after you set your entire hand. Yes? These are things you can technically do. But what if you lose the coin flip in that situation? Then you've lost your next turn. Which means you lose out on a draw. Which means that this card's a -2 if you lose the coin flip. Maybe it's just me looking at the downside as too severe, but even the upside's not great. Losing the coin flip is a skill issue. Just get the coin flip right. Why didn't I think of that? This card is actually OP because Solomon's Law Book skips only your standby phase. Gamble can skip your whole next turn. This is power creep. I don't know if dueling skill cards are ever going to come to the main game, and I try to keep these lists focused on the main game because we're working as a progression series and it's easier to keep track of the card pool. Only the MBT Junior Journey can save us from the Konami card, lol. Hence the name Gamble. I don't think it's a good gamble, though. I think it's a bad gamble. Here's another Collect 'em All card, is Attack and Receive. Sort of reminds me of what the Highwayman says, Stand and Deliver. It's a normal trap. You can only activate this card when you take damage to your life points. Inflict 700 points of damage to your opponent's life points. Also, inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent's life points for each Attack and Receive in your graveyard. So the first one is worse than Ukazi. The second one deals 1,000 damage, which is better than Ukazi, and the third one would do 1,300 damage. So all three cards combined would be 7 plus 7 plus 1,000 plus 1,300 is 3,000 damage off of 3 cards. I think you can do much, much better. That's true. And you can only activate, this is really bad Ukazi because it's so conditional. You can't chain them. That makes it a bad card automatically. I agree. You have to wait to take 3 instances of damage to your life points just to get that 3,000 damage. Ooh, that's real rough. You can activate 3 copies and chain emergency provisions to send them all to the graveyard to maximize the damage. Also inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent's life points for each attack and receive card in your graveyard. Oh. That's a little bit better if that works the way that you think it does. Still garbage. Still really bad. I don't know if it's... I think just bad. At least it does something. It's better than Gift of the Mystical Elf. Next up, Solemn Wishes. Continuous trap. Increase your life points by 500 points each time you draw a card or cards. This does nothing. It's a continuous trap that eventually will get you some life points back. I think the only card that's similar to this is Soul Absorption, because Soul Absorption can give you a lot of life points really fast. And Soul Absorption is at least worth considering, because you can banish 10 cards with Pot of Desires, or you could use Eater of Millions. There's some interesting things that you can do with Soul Absorption that you can't do with Solemn Wishes. Solemn Wishes can potentially be good in burn decks or with Fairy Box. I understand where you're coming from, that you can mitigate the downside of Fairy Box, but it's very slow, and you're using a card to do it. Solemn Wishes is the alternate win con for Empty Jar when you can't mill in one turn. Ooh! But how do you get it? How do you get the Solemn Wishes to activate? It's a trap card. I guess you don't have to do the empty jar combo on the first turn, but interesting. Okay. That might be enough to take it out of bad and put it into Gimmick, maybe? This card is annoying if you run out of back row removal. I don't see it. Its friend or contemporary, I guess, is Skull Invitation, continuous trap. Each time a card is sent to the graveyard, inflict 300 damage to the owner for each card sent. Ooh, this is symmetric, so it works on you and your opponent. I was about to say that this might be a better option than Solemn Wishes in Empty Jar, but then I reread the card, and this is not good. It's real slow burn, conditional burn, and it hits you too. Now this is the grass counter card. Chain this to the grass looks greener, and then they take 6,000 points of damage. Oh, actually, okay. If you can't do the full jar combo, you set, pass, then finish the duel with a lot of life points in case you keep getting bad draws and can't keep going. Again, old Empty Jar decks. Superfluous and mill decks, to be honest. I think Magical Thorn actually works better with Empty Jar, because that's 500 points each time a card is discarded, and Morphing Jar discards 5 at a time. I see Skull Invitation in a lot of stall decks and Duel Links. Still, I wonder how it would work with Jar number 2 and its loops. Ooh. That is in the set. I guess that's worth considering at least. If you play Desires and have a small deck, then this card is an instant kill against grass, but then your opponent has to have that grass looks greener? Okay. I guess it's not very bad. I guess we'll put in filler. I see the applications, and the applications are okay. But they always have it in 60 card decks. They always have the grass looks greener. Question science still can't answer. Next up, Bubonic Vermin. Earth attribute, level 3, Beast effect. Flip. You can special summon one Bubonic Vermin. You can special summon one Bubonic Vermin from your deck in face down defense position. Then shuffle your deck. 900 attack, 600 defense. Ooh, another collect 'em all card. I withdraw my previous comment. Some of the collect 'em all cards were good. It's cute. It doesn't deserve that name. Oh, wait. Rats are sort of related to the bubonic plague. They're not the direct carriers. The fleas on the rats were what were spreading the disease, because the fleas would bite the rats and they'd draw blood, and it would end up killing the rats, and then the fleas would move on to human targets, and that's where the plague really started getting momentum. They're a vector in the epidemic, but they're not the problem in themselves. Ooh, what's the definition of filler now that we are getting into cards that aren't outclassed normals? That's a good question. I think filler in this case is cards that either have a strictly better version or don't do much on their own. I think a lot of the cards that are in filler right now, like 7 Complete, Earthshaker, and Harpy's brother, for instance, or Sky Scout, saying the wrong name again, have strictly better versions already, but they're still okay. Hello, Ancient Gear Golem. Oh yeah, the bubonic plague, very bad. There might be too many categories, or maybe not enough categories. I'm not sure yet. We're refining it slowly. Next up, Dark Bat. Wind attribute, level 3, Winged Beast. Bats from the netherworld that use their hypersenses to detect their enemies. 1000 attack, 1000 defense. Put them in normal. I guess you could use Crane with it. There's a lot of normal monsters, but I think this is one of the last sets where they really matter. Let's see. Yeah. I mean, Labyrinth of Nightmare has a few, and then I think I'm actually going to remove the normal tier. So after the next main set, no more normal tier. But that's pretty good because they actually try new things with their normal monsters as you get later in the game. They're at least trying to make them relevant at that point. Sick card art here. I'm guessing on Oni Tank T34. Earth attribute level 4. Machine, an armored tank possessed by a fiend that will pursue enemies until they're cursed. No, until they're crushed. I'm cursed. 1400 attack, 1700 defense. I guess you could float into this with your battle floaters. Is that useful? This card is pretty sick. It's in a chicken game. This guy on chicken game in pole position. Oh yeah, cries in pole position. I don't like pole position. I think pole position is easily a design mistake. The following card also appears along with it. Indeed. At least they're friends. Next up is Overdrive. Earth attribute, level 4. Machine, an all-terrain armored vehicle armed with a heavy-duty machine gun. 1600 attack, 1500 defense. Potentially this is a strictly better version of Oni Tank T34, but maybe not, because this isn't a giant rat target. How is Overdrive stronger than a tank? I don't know. I guess they're both tanks, but they're different kinds of tanks. Okay, next up, continuous spell, Burning Land. When this card is activated, if there are any field spells on the field, destroy them. During each player's standby phase, the turn player takes 500 damage. Ooh, another reason to skip your standby phase. Where do we put Minor Goblin Official? I guess it's better and worse than Minor Goblin Official. I guess it's sort of close to Skull Invitation. It's really good flavor. I like how it destroys field spells. Truly a hideous abomination. Is Burning Land the abomination, or is Overdrive? Overdrive trades defense for attack. Indeed. No, not Burning Land. How will the NTG players survive? That is a real thing. Land destruction in Magic the Gathering, one of the strongest effects as far as disrupting your opponent. And there's a lot of it. This card is just ugly. Oh, you don't like the artwork? Okay. I can see that. Should have been a field spell. A field spell that stops other field spells? I don't know, like Field Barrier. This card reminds me of Field Barrier. But we're not there yet. Next up, Cold Wave. So we had the Burning Land, and now we have the Cold Wave. I don't think those are intended to go together. Normal spell. This card can only be activated at the start of main phase 1. Until your next turn, you and your opponent cannot play or set any spell or trap cards. Yeah. Everyone already knows. This card's a design mistake. I don't know how far it gets in the design mistake. Probably like this order. What were they thinking? Well, they were thinking the game is mostly spell and trap based, maybe? I mean, it affects both of you. It's symmetric, so like it's not that good until the game gets really monster based. And then it gets really powerful, especially in like gladiator beasts. Ooh, were there Monster Mash decks back then? I don't know if you'd play just a Monster Mash deck. You definitely play Cold Wave with Cyberstein, though. That'd be a good combo. Land destruction in TG is comparable to card ripping from hand in Yu-Gi-Oh! Rare and very powerful effect considering the design of each game. I agree, and there is some crazy land destruction in Magic in the older sets. Way too many decks play monsters only, even back then. Cold Wave enabled too many OTKs, even back in the day. I agree. Cold Wave, definite design mistake. What were they thinking? I don't think they were planning for the future. But the card's balanced because it affects both players and it like shuts you out for the turn too. The card gets even more powerful as the game gets faster. I agree. Next up, Fairy Meteor Crush. If the equipped monster attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. I think Cold Wave's still banned, right? Cold Wave didn't come off the list, right? Yeah, it's still banned. I'll equip Fairy Meteor Crush with Mad Sword Beast. Indeed. Finish him off with False Swipe. It's worse than Big Bang Shot, but we don't have Big Bang Shot yet. It's actually kind of funny because you can equip it to your opponent's card and they take the damage. Is that how that interaction works? If the equipped monster attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Oh, this card's weird. I'm going to say filler. I think filler is okay to put it. There will be better options for piercing battle damage. The card's not great. Equip it to your opponent's ultimate conductor Tyranno. It'll be funny. Let me see the rulings. Oh man, is this card a design mistake? Piercing damage is not worth a card in itself. Yeah, I agree. Piercing damage is a nice bonus when you can get it, but I wouldn't go out of my way for it. Next card is Limiter Removal. Spell card. Quick play spell. Double the attack of all machine monsters you currently control until the end phase of this turn. During the end phase of this turn, destroy those monsters. This is another card. What were they thinking? This card is real strong, like facilitates a lot of different OTKs. I think the one that comes to mind that has minimal deck building impact is with Malefic, Cyber, and Dragon, and this card, that's 8,000 damage on its own. It is definitely a really good card. You put it in Cyber Dragons, you put it in Numerons, you put it in Gadgets when you had Gadgets. I mean, this card, easily one of the best -1s in the game, I'd say. It is OP. And here's a question for you. So if Dianketo is bad because it's a -1 for 1,000 life points, how bad is Reign of Mercy? That's a -1 with a symmetric 1,000 life points. Normal spell, increase the life points of both players by 1,000 points. I think it's just bad. I know you can use it in Nurse Burn or Bad Reaction of Samuchi and make it a better Dianketo Cure Master that's also a Meteor of Destruction. But I think it's still bad. I think Nurse Burn's a gimmick, and there's a lot better cards in Nurse Burn. Ooh. Todokete says that limiter removal might not actually be viable today. That there's quite a lot of ways to already OTK and you don't need the extra help. I don't know. I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's definitely up there. You wouldn't even run Reign of Mercy and Nurse Burn. Upstart is a much better choice. Even Soul Taker's a little bit useful in Nurse Burn, because at least you're removing a monster, or you're destroying a monster. If the equipped monster of Fairy Meteor Crush is not your own monster, but your opponent's monster, it is seen from the controller of Fairy Meteor Crush that the attack power takes damage by the number exceeding the defensive power. I think I read that correctly and I still don't understand. Maybe we put Fairy Meteor Crush in design mistake. Next up, Monster Recovery. Quick play spell. Target one monster you control that is owned by you. If that monster is still in the field, shuffle it and your entire hand into the deck. Also, after that, draw cards equal to the number of cards you shuffled from your hand into the deck by this effect. You cannot activate this card if you have a card in your hand that is owned by your opponent. Ooh, they really don't want you to steal your opponent's cards. Well, but why though? Why use Monster Recovery? There's also Monster Relief, which we'll get later, and I still ask the question of why use that one too. Very, very good question. Why go -1, lose board presence, and like shuffle your hand? Reload is an okay card. Reload saw a little bit of competitive success. It is definitely worse than Magical Mallet, but at least reload was useful for something. This is bad reload. It's a -2. Yeah, because you're losing your monster and you're losing monster recovery. This card's so bad. Maybe it's even very bad. I just don't understand why. Next up, Shift. And I found some pretty funny artwork on the wiki. I like this. It's basically the same idea, but it's got a lot less detail for some reason. Anyway, Shift. Normal trap. When your opponent targets exactly one monster you control and no other cards for an attack, or with a spell or trap effect, target another monster you control that would be an appropriate target. That attack / spell / trap now targets the new target. Wow. That's a lot of card text. Is this ever good? You can surprise your opponent. You thought you were attacking into me, but really, it's me, Dio. I don't know. You thought you were buffing one of my monsters or trying to remove it. I'll redirect it. I just don't see it being useful. You could use it to sort of kinda save a monster. Yeah. I guess. I just think it's way too situational to be useful, but I'd understand if it's filler. The effect is not that bad. Like Switch in Pokemon, excellent card in the Pokemon TCG. Is this Switch? No. Just play a trap that stops the effect. Yeah, just play Magic Jammer or Trap Jammer. Mystical Ref Panel is better. Well, we don't have Mystical Ref Panel yet. And also, Mystical Ref Panel, I'm just going to say, is a design mistake because no one knows what that card does. And if you think you do, you might be wrong. You also don't see a lot of those one-word names in Yu-Gi-Oh! I agree. It's always filled with words. There's so many. It is nice. I like the simple card name. It would make more sense if you could target an opponent's monster. Yeah, if it was like Magical Arm Shield where you could redirect the attack to your opponent's monster. Target a player. Oh. Mystical Ref Panel would only work if problem-solving card text designated player targets. I think Mystical Ref Panel needs a lot more than just that. It needs to indicate what player actions are and what it actually affects. I think unintentionally that's one of the worst cards from a design perspective. Next up, one of my favorite cards, Insect Imitation. Normal spell, tribute one monster. Special summon one insect monster from your deck whose level is one higher than the tributed monster had on the field. I love this card. I love this card so much. So you can tutor out quite a lot of different things. Why is it an egg if it summons an insect? Insects come from eggs. Also, there's like nest robber birds that will take the eggs out of one nest and they'll replace them with their own. And I think that's what this is referencing. But instead of birds stealing other birds' nests, it's like insects stealing birds' nests. I think it's egg robber. Insect Imitation is a really good combined with Pinch Hopper. I don't know. That's a little gimmicky. I just love the design of this card so much that you can use it in all sorts of different decks, and sometimes it's actually pretty good. You could get out Scary Moth, and Scary Moth is a good floodgate monster. So you could play Hieratics with Insect Imitation, get your Hieratic dragons, and then have end your board with a Scary Moth. I like this card. I understand if anyone wants to put it lower, but the card's a lot of fun. I understand if you want to put it lower. That's not meaning that it's going to go lower. Kind of feels ahead of its time. Special summoning from the deck on a spell was very rare back then. Well, we had Last Will, so... It's usable in Battle Wasp, Insect Imitation specifically. You can use it with a lot of stuff. Like, I can see it in Giant Ballpark too. There's a lot of fun things that you can do with Insect Imitation. Next up, Dimension Hole. So, this card's Japanese name is Time Travel, and that just makes so much more sense than Dimension Hole as far as what the effect does, because this card confused me so much as a kid. It's a normal spell. Select one monster on your side of the field and remove it from play until your next standby phase. While the monster is removed from play, the monster card zone of the selected monster cannot be used. When is this useful? Like, you could theoretically activate Dark Hole and keep one of your monsters, but then you went -1 to do it, and you're playing a very, very, very bad card to do it. Later we'll get Interdimensional Matter Transporter, which is a trap card that sort of does the same thing. This would be excusable if it was a spell speed too. Oh, if this was a quick play spell, I think this card would actually be real good. If it was a quick play spell, then your opponent would use removal and you'd say, no, I'm going to time travel. If this were a quick play spell, I think it would have been good. Maybe even meta. But unfortunately, right now it's just super weird. I like that you can't use that monster zone so that it's going to go back where it came from. But I also don't like that because it means that you don't have access to it. This card's probably really bad for links where you want to have things in specific monster zones. I think it would be maybe not meta relevant, but rogue relevant, I guess? Low tier relevant. Dimension Hole would be so much better. Why don't we have Time Travel 2 or something? Retrain Time Travel. Next card we're on is Ground Collapse. Continue a spell. Select 2 monster card zones on the field. Neither player can use the selected zones. You cannot select a zone that is occupied by a monster card. Ooh. Oh, okay. For Ground Collapse, has it had errata to make it only hit main monster zones? I think it has. I think Ground Collapse did have effect changing errata. No using your opponent's monster zones, bucko. Well, there are some cards that will special summon themselves on the opponent's side of the field, which might be the reference. Ojama support. Maybe with Ojama King? Yeah. So indeed, this can't be used to just mess with the special monster zones. The card has no relevance. I think this card and Spatial Collapse, there's a whole bunch of these stun tools that just aren't worth it. But theoretically, the card could be strong, like how Kaiser Coliseum was ridiculous. But we're not there yet. I've been talking about Magic Jammer a lot, but what about Magic Drain? Counter Trap. When your opponent activates a spell card, they can discard one spell card to negate the card's effect. Otherwise, negate the activation of their spell card, and if you do, destroy it. Oh, we got a request to go back to time travel, which is very good in theme. No, go back to the time travel card. If I set up a Link Karibo and use the spell card on it that has special monster zone now unusable? Okay. Go back to the time travel card. If I set up a Link Karibo and use the spell card on it, is that special monster zone now unusable? I think so, until Link Karibo returns it. Oh, any old cards that reference monster zones like Senate Switch and Ground Collapse were updated to only affect main monster zones. So no, it doesn't work like that. Be interesting if it did. Sort of glad they don't. But they'd be messier if they did. Back to Magic Drain. This card was definitely meta. In fact, this is one of the better negation cards because you're always going to be going 1 for 1. Sometimes they're going to negate it, but sometimes they're not going to have the option to. I think this card's great. I used to play Magic Drain quite a lot, and the original printing of the card said, immediately your opponent discards a magic card or something to that effect, and it was really funny. Next up, Infinite Dismissal. Continuous Trap. Level 3 or lower monsters are destroyed during the end phase of the turn that they are normal summoned or flip summoned. Theoretically, this card is a good floodgate, but I don't know. Theoretically, this could be useful in some situation. I don't see it quite yet, so I'm just gonna say bad. Maybe it goes into filler. It's very, very specific. So like I'm thinking if your opponent has some tuners or something that they want to leave on the field, or low level monsters, maybe you stop them from making their Xyz or their Link. I don't know. I used it in my deck in elementary school, therefore it's good. Hey, we don't always have to focus on competitive impact. Sometimes we just gotta remember to enjoy the game, so. I'm gonna try to find old deck lists because I remember writing out some when I was a kid. I'd love to see how bad they are now. Next up, Gravity Bind. Continuous Trap. Level 4 or higher monsters cannot attack. Very simple effect. This card is meta-defining. Like it's not worth considering today because of changes in game mechanics. Lynx and Xyz monsters are unaffected by Gravity Bind because they don't have levels. But I think that Gravity Bind could have just been banned and it would have made the game a lot more fun because every deck was running it. It is a very annoying card. At least Jinzo gets around it, though. Next up, Type 0 Magic Crusher. Ooh, this one isn't a number 1 card. This is a number 0 card. Continuous Trap. Discard one spell from your hand to inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent's life points. Theoretically, this is an okay card. Like, if there's a loop where you can just keep getting spell cards from your hand to the graveyard and then back to your hand, Type 0 Magic Crusher could be used for an OTK. It's a trap card, so you're not likely to get it into an FTK, but there's at least some utility. I like the design space that it's opening up, that any dead spells that you have in your hand become Hinotama as far as having second utility, but it's not good. I got hit in Duel Links because of Witchcrafter. Question mark? Next up, Shadow of Eyes. When a monsters is set on your opponent's field, target one of those set monsters. Change that set monster to face-up attack position. Flip effects are not activated. Is this useful? Monster Eye adds Poly from graveyard to hand, and there's a gimmick deck involving these two cards. Okay. Witchcrafters can add back all their spells from grave in the end phase. I guess it's potentially useful then? I guess it escapes bad and goes into gimmick. But Shadow of Eyes, for some reason the anime artwork looks a little bit different. I don't know why. Is this censorship? I think this card is interesting, but doesn't do enough. Being able to turn off a flip effect is a little cool, but it's situational, hard to use. I don't think this is a great card, but I like it. Maybe as a quick play spell it'd be a little bit more useful, but then again, trap makes the most sense as far as the timing window. That is true. Magic Crusher Type 0 is a trap card. So I guess if your opponent's going to try to hit you with some hand disruption, you could go and do that. And go ahead and get rid of your own spell cards for some advantage. I don't know. The Japanese version looks like anime in art style. I agree. Moving on. We have Freaky Fish Guy, as all mods are. Oh, yeah. We have the Freaky Fish Guy. The Legendary Fisherman. Water, level 5, Warrior, effect. While Umi is on the field, this card is unaffected by spell effects and cannot be targeted for attacks, but does not prevent your opponent from attacking you directly. 1850, 1600. So I'm a little curious. If this card is unaffected by Umi, does that mean that you don't get the attack bonus from Umi? Or like a Legendary Ocean? So is this card level 5 in your hand? No, wait a second. This card, if you have a Legendary Ocean, then this card's still level 5 in your hand? That's weird. So you can't cheat him out with a Legendary Ocean. Very weird. I don't think that's useful. Why are you not affected by Umi? Why isn't it you're not affected by other spell cards? And that's your own spell cards. I just don't understand the benefit for this card. And it's not the only one. There's a whole bunch of these Umi-based cards. He is necessary in order to get the retrains. Well, yeah, you gotta have the first card, I guess. If this is bad card design, it should have been affected by Umi. I can't believe it's not affected by it in the hand. That's the crazy part. It is affected by it in hand, but not on the board. While Umi is on the field, this card is unaffected by spell effects. I don't know if that's right. Oh, the rulings say that Fisherman is still level 4 in your hand. Okay, I guess so. That's weird. That's really weird that they had to specify that. It'd be really bad if it weren't. Next up, Sword Hunter. Earth attribute. Level 7, Warrior, Effect Monster. At the beginning of your battle phase, if this card destroyed a monsters by battle and sent it to the graveyard, this battle phase, equip all those monsters from the graveyard to this card as equipped spell cards with the effect. The equipped monster gains 200 attack. 2450, 1700. Continuous effects like that don't apply to cards in hand. Interesting. Very interesting. 2 tributes for nothing. Well, no, it could power up slowly. This card is perfect for cluttering your spell and trap zones. I wonder if you could use this against your opponent's Crystal Beasts and steal their Crystal Beasts as the ultimate tech card to do nothing. Yeah, and the bonus is so small. And this guy starts out so weak. He starts out worse than Summon Skull and then eventually gets 200. Oh no. Some art changes might have been from them losing the original high-quality art after the Japanese printing. That happened to a land card in Magic the Gathering's Alpha set. Badlands, maybe? Oh, that would be sad. Would it even work on Crystal Beasts? That's a good question. Oh, which effect would trigger first? You'd have turn priority, so wouldn't your effect trigger first? This is a bad card and it causes rulings problems, apparently. Next up, Drillbug. Earth attribute, level 2, insect effect. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent's life points, you can select one Parasite card from your deck, shuffle your deck, and place Parasite on top of the deck. 1100 attack, 200 defense. I don't know why this card's so bad. I don't know why this only affects you. I don't know why this card doesn't put Parasite on the top of your opponent's deck. I don't know why it has to get in for damage. I don't know why it's so weak on a level 2. This card, it makes no sense. Why is it so bad? It doesn't even add Parasite to your hand. It just puts it on top of the deck. Do you give this to your opponent and hope that they attack you with it after giving them Parasite? This card is just so bad. So bad. Yeah, and there's a much better card. There's Insect Whistle that can just put it directly on their deck. Jade Insect Whistle. Just so bad. Next up, Deep Sea Warrior. Water attribute, level 5, Warrior effect. As long as Umi is face up on the field, this card is unaffected by any spell cards. 1600 attack, 1800 defense. Is this card just strictly worse than the fish guy? I think it might be. Which is, it's really underwhelming. Next up, Bite Shoes. Bite Shoes. I don't know why that's hard to say. Dark attribute, level 2, Fiend effect. Flip. Change the attack or defense position of one face-up monster on the field. The card must remain face-up. Well, look, They learned from darkness approaches. 500 attack, 300 defense. So we get Ryukishin Clown in like a set or two, and Ryukishin Clown has this effect, and it's a lot better because it's on summon. So potentially you could special summon it or use it in a combo and have some impact, but this is just way too slow and not impactful. I think it's bad. This is followed by Spikebot, Dark Attribute, level 5, Machine, a mechanical soldier created by a wicked sorcerer. It attacks with 2 steel balls attached to its arms. 1800 attack, 1700 defense. Put him with the other normal monsters. I guess with Steel Ogre. You like the artwork though. Oh yeah, Deep Sea Warrior, great artwork. I'm so glad he got a little bit of character. Not a lot, but a little bit of character in the virtual world arc, because he looks real good in that one. The shoe, it does something in Clown Control, but it's not a good choice in Clown Control. Oh, I guess you could use Ryukishin Clown in Clown Control as another clown. Another terrible 5-star normal. I wonder why. I guess we gotta release them sometime. Next up, Invitation to a Dark Sleep. Dark Attribute, level 5, Spellcaster, Effect Monster. As the effect, when this monster is summoned, excluding Special Summon, select one of your opponent's monsters. As long as this card remains face up on the field, the selected monster cannot attack. Oh no. Oh no. 1500 attack, 1800 defense. Oh no. This card can be special summoned from the deck with Mystic Tomato, which is actually pretty good, but then it won't get its effect. I don't even think the effect's bad. I think the effect's decent. I think the fact that it ignores when it's special summoned is the real problem with the card. I have no idea why they make that restriction. Otherwise, you're sacrificing a monster to normal summon this? For a 1500 attack monster? I agree. Excellent card artwork. I think remove 3 words from its rules text and it's okay. But right now it's bad. Jump through hoops to get something that's just okay. Yeah, that's not a sign of a good card. Next up, Thousand Eyes Idol. Level 1, Spellcaster. A wicked entity that controls the hearts of men. Its 1,000 eyes are able to see and expand the negative influences in an individual soul. That is so hard to read. The negative influences in an individual's soul. Could they have made it harder? 0 attack, 0 defense. Also, the boy's power stancing. I can see him. The ground quakes beneath them. Why Konami was printing bad cards? I don't know why. Why is Konami printing all the bad cards in the early sets? It's a good question. I don't know if they know that they're bad cards at this point. It's useless against female characters. Oh no. The Hearts of Men. Oh yeah. It is specifically the Hearts of Men. Ooh, Thousand Eyes Idol broken. That's 0 attack, 0 defense, level 1. You bring it out with Unexpected Die. You put it... You're 1-for-1. You're Where Art Thou? I think it's just going to go in normal tier, but it might go pretty high in normal tier. balanced around being fusion material for a very good card. On the plus side, it's a metamorphosis target for Thousand Eyes. Yeah, so is Skull Servant though, so that's not the biggest endorsement. I think it's funny that you'd summon Thousand Eyes Idol and then use Metamorphosis instead of going through the normal fusion route, because the normal fusion route is just inefficient by comparison. The power progression made a lot more sense in the OCG. They even got to have viable Dark Magician for a little while. Oh, that is good. Ooh, Thousand Eyes Idol can be used with Zero Xerox. That's a good point. And this is a target for Recurring Nightmare. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that you can do with it, with those stats. Next up, Thousand Eyes Restrict. This is an iconic card. It's the cover card, yay! Dark Attribute, level 1, Spellcaster, Fusion, Effect Monster. Materials are Relinquished, Thousand Eyes Idol. Other monsters on the field cannot change their battle positions or attack. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls. Equip that target to this card, maximum 1. This card's attack and defense become equal to that equipped monster's. If this card would be destroyed by battle, destroy the equipped monster instead. 0 attack, 0 defense. So yeah, this card is another one that defined the metagame for quite some time. It had to be banned. It was like the only fusion monster on the ban list for quite some time. Really, really strong. 2 years worth of sets, mostly normal monsters in the OCG. Oh, that's sad. We did miss out on some nice progression. I think it's worth considering today. I think this is one of the better instant fusion targets. I mean, of course, it's got good type and level and attribute. Those are all important. But getting to suck up one of your opponent's monsters and then going into your Link or your Xyz or your Synchro play, yeah, I think this card is definitely worth considering today. Specifically because instant fusion is in the game. There is a little bit of opportunity cost, but this is one of the much better targets. Instant fusion gets banned, then it's probably going to jump all the way down to, I don't know, meta at one point. Next up, Girochin Kuwagata. Wind attribute, level 4, insect, normal monster. Despite its small size, this monster has powerful jaws that can rip metal to shreds. 1700 attack, 1000 defense. Just gonna put in normal monsters. I think we have Neobug, or maybe we don't have Neobug quite yet. But this card is pretty much outclassed by Neobug. Relinquished, Thousand-Eyed, Millennium Eyes. What a great lineup. I agree. There are some nice cards. Why would instant fusion get banned? Because it's a normal spell that can give you a monster on board. Instant fusion gives you a lot of board presence for minimal involvement. The card's real strong. Goki Pole target. So I realized that Killer Needle is the best Goki Pole target because she won't lower attack so that you can pop more monsters. This is a Goki Pole target, that's not wrong, but it's not the best one. I also mixed up Goki Pole and Goki Pod, and that's why I was so confused in a previous stream. There is also a deck built around Thousand-Eyed and Relinquished that is Rogue, so I think it might still be worth considering if instant fusion ever gets banned. That's a big stretch. I don't know if I can respond to that. I think because it's outclassed by Killer Needle, we're going to keep it in the normal tier. Next up, Hayabusa Knight. Earth Attribute, level 3, Warrior, Effect Monster. This card can make a second attack during each battle phase. Such weird wording. Why did they say during each battle phase? Well, you got Weather Report and Unexpected Report that influence that text. 1,000 attack, 700 defense. Theoretically, this card is niche. I think it goes good on release. It gets under Gravity Bind. You can equip it with equip spells, and then it can attack twice. You can use this for breaking weak boards, like attacking into Bubonic Vermins or Nimbomongas or some other cards. Indeed, Killer Needle is best because it can pop Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds. This guy would need to attack over it. Kurogata would need to attack over it because it has more attack than the Barrier Statue. This card's only good with the equip cards, and then it's a much worse Benkei. Well, we don't have Armed Samurai Benkei yet, so I'm not sure it's fair for that comparison. I think it's good on release. I think it's fair to put it there. I'm not saying the card would be meta, but maybe you'd put it in your side deck. I think the card's fun. Next up, Bombardment Beetle. Wind Attribute, level 2. Insect Flip Effect, flip. Pick up and see one face down defense position monster card on your opponent's side of the field. If it's an effect monster, destroy it. Its flip effect is not activated. And if the card is not, return it to its original position. 400 attack, 900 defense. So bombardment beetles are actually little beetles, and they have chemicals that react inside of them, and then they shoot burning hot liquids. Yeah, I like that name. But this is a bomb beetle that's got an explosive on it. Also, this is anti-flip effect flip card, which is a little silly. In a little while, I'm not sure how many sets, but there's a Hobby League exclusive card called Green Kappa that's also anti-face down flip effect card. That card's actually pretty good, and I could see it seeing meta success at the time, but I don't think Bombardment Beetle gets there yet. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just we have Nobleman of Crossout in the same. Yeah, this is Maneater Bug, but bad. I can agree with that. I mean, Maneater Bug says regardless of position. Next up, another deadly bug. 4-starred Ladybug of Doom. Wind Attribute, level 3. Insect, effect, flip. Destroy all level 4 monsters your opponent controls. 800 attack, 1200 defense. I'm gonna put it all the way up and good on release. There's a lot of level 4 monsters running around in the metagame. This is a one-sided board wipe in certain board states. It's a flip effect, but it's potentially a really strong one. Is this better Maneater Bug? I don't think it's better than Maneater Bug, but it is definitely a contender. It's a lot better than Bombardment Beetle, that's sure. I don't know if this card is good enough to escape normal tier, but we have Gradius. Light Attribute, level 4. Machine, a high-performance jet fighter with power capsules for variable attack capabilities. 1200 attack, 800 defense. So if you don't know, Konami also used to... I'm not sure if they published or actually made the games themselves, but they used to make games like Gradius so space shoot 'em ups, and Parodius, which is a spinoff. Anyway, this is the main character in that show. Or I guess you don't say the spaceship's the main character. This is the main avatar in that game. Yeah. It's got some special support, but right now it's just a normal monster and not a great one. Developed and published Gradius. Thank you. Does Gradius ever get good? I don't know. There's some interesting support that will come later. Even the support is not good. Like, he gets Gradius's option, and I can't remember, but I think that card might be okay. And then there's like Cyclone Laser later that gives it more attack because ooh, more attack. Oh, the Vic Viper is the name of the ship. Then what is Gradius? The other spaceships are pretty good, like Lord British. There's also Ambitious Gopher and like, I think the BES and Big Core and stuff are also related. Those are pretty okay. I'm going to keep it in normal tier for now. Maybe there will be a gimmick at some point with it though. Next up, Vampire Baby. So this is name changing because this card used to be Red Moon Baby, because you can see the red moon in the background. And it is better now because it's a member of the vampire archetype. Its dark attribute, level 3, zombie effect. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle and sent it to the graveyard this turn, you can special summon that monster to your side of the field. 700 attack, 1000 defense. It's Baby Goyo Guardian. Oh, that is the perfect description. I like it. I don't know if I should like it, but this card's pretty good if you can get the ball rolling. There's a lot of monsters that you can beat over if you summon this into the right board state, or after like shrinking your opponent's monsters, or with the right equip support. This card can start snowballing. They literally just listed the stuff in the art and said, that's the card name now. Red Moon Baby. Regionalization team, you're dropping the ball. But it's okay, they fixed it eventually. And there's like no other vampire support yet, so I don't think it mattered. But next up, Mad Sword Beast. Earth attribute, level 4, Dinosaur. Effect. If this card battles a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. 1400 attack, 1200 defense. This card was meta. So, not necessarily high meta, but if your opponent's walling up with weak monsters, especially flip effect monsters, then Mad Sword Beast can get in for some damage. I think that's the only major application with it, but it's seen some meta success, so. Too much saliva, 10 out of 2. Too much saliva, 2 out of 10. Mr. Mammal? Mr. Marnell. Weirdly on theme for modern-ish vampires that steal opponents' monsters. Oh yeah, I think the theming was always really strong. That vampires like disrupt people's minds by interfering with their decks, and some of them have Partition of Darkness is another one that interferes with your opponent, and like the vampire theming is great. I love the way they implemented vampires, but are they good? That's a question. Next up, Skull Mariner. Water attribute, level 4, Warrior. A pirate ship that appears out of the mist and sinks any seagoing vessels. 1600 attack, 900 defense. How is this a warrior? I don't understand. At least we're getting more friends in the normal tier. Followed by the all-seeing white tiger. I guess if they use the red moon baby convention, this would be like Moon Scar Tiger. Wind attribute, for some reason, level 3, Beast. A proud ruler of the jungle that some fear and others respect. 1300 attack, 500 defense. Normal. Okay, so Skull Mariner is a warrior because the pirates are sort of like warriors. It appears out of packs and sinks to the bottom of the shoebox. The ship, which seems conscious, thinks itself as one. Some of the types I really don't understand. I mean, I understand why Goblin Attack Force, for instance, is a warrior. Those look like warriors, or I guess goblins might be fiends, but they're definitely employed as a warrior. Earth attribute, level 4, warrior, effect monster. If this card battles, it is changed to defense position at the end of the battle phase, and its battle phase cannot be changed until the end phase of your next turn. 1300 attack, 0 defense. Very specific effect, but this has replaced Jirai Gumo as the strongest normal summon that you have. This is you could have it as a 2300 point wall, but you could also go in for damage, and sometimes the board state even lines up where you want to attack with it, and then you want it to switch into defense position so that you can block your opponent's attack. Warrior is such a boring catch-all for anything that might engage in combat. Yeah. Best skill drain normal summon. When do we get skill drain? I don't know when we get skill drain, but by that time we might have armor X or some of the other 2400 points. You probably still don't want Giant Kozaki because that one's 25, but really hard to use. Yeah. This card was meta. This card was real strong. One of the best uses is that you can just put it in your warrior toolbox with reinforcement of the army. Island turtle, water attribute, level 4, aqua. A huge turtle that is often mistaken for an island. Even the card's name mistakes it for an island. 1100 attack, 2000 defense. I don't think that's actually better than Giant Soldier of Stone. I think Giant Soldier of Stone is stronger. If all those goblins have a total of 2300 attack, each goblin has 287 and a half attack. Weaker than Karibo. It's very specific numbers. I don't know how they calculate attack points or like power levels and things. I think it's random. Next up, Wing Weaver. Light attribute, level 7, fairy. A 6-winged fairy who prays for peace and hope. 2750 attack, 2400 defense. This card's okay. I like the artwork a lot. This is a Seraph, I think. A 6-winged angel. Very good artwork. I don't think the card is useful for anything. 7's a little bit too high for it to even see gimmick and use in like Herald of Perfection decks. Should have prayed for more attack points. That's not peaceful. Next up, Science Soldier. Dark attribute, level 3, warrior. Soldier is equipped with state-of-the-art weaponry to face unknown creatures. 800, 800. There is an angel Digimon. I think it's like called Angelmon or something silly like that. I don't remember what it looks like, but I think it was sort of similar. I could see that as a Digimon, except there's no guns. Like, Digimon usually have guns or swords or stuff. Next up, can't forget this one. Souls of the Forgotten. Dark attribute, level 2, Fiend. A wicked spirit created by the hateful souls of those who fell in battle. It grows by assimilating the souls of its enemies. 900 attack, 200 defense. This card's actually pretty cool from a lore perspective because you see it in like Pestilence, which is a card we'll get to much later, and I like it. Ange Woman. Great Ghostbusters looking gear. Oh, you could pass as a Ghostbuster cosplay. I think it's interesting that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has so many sci-fi themes, but are also classified as warriors or other fantasy tropes. I think it's a challenge. Science Soldier could be an archetype name. Sounds dope. I agree. The word they use for warrior in Japanese, senshi, is more broad. For example, the word used to refer to Sailor Scouts, Sailor senshi, in Sailor Moon. Isn't senshi master? Like rank? Next up, Dokuro Yaiba. Fire attribute, level 3, Fiend. A boomerang with brains that will pursue a target to the ends of the earth. 1000 attack, 400 defense. I guess if you wanted to, this is like a fire attribute tour guide target if you wanted that. I might be thinking of Sensei. Yeah, it's fire for some reason. I don't know if that's ever useful. The Japanese name for this one is like Boomerang Shinigami, but the English name is like the transliteration for boomerang in Japanese. It's like they did the same thing with Kage Tokage. Cannot speak. Goes in normal tier. Next up, the Fiend Mega Cyber. Dark attribute, level 6, Warrior effect. If your opponent controls at least 2 more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. 2200 attack, 1200 defense. I don't know if this card was ever meta, but it should have been. This card's real good. This card is the comeback card that Cyber Dragon should have been, but is way earlier. I think this card might have been undervalued, or maybe it was just hard to come by, but this card is so good in old formats. 2200 attack is nothing to laugh at. It's instant board presence, you can tribute it, it's got a lot of utility. Next up, Gearfried, the Iron Knight. Earth attribute, level 4, Warrior effect monster. If either player equips and equipped cards to this card, destroy that equipped cards. 1800 attack, 1600 defense. Because they didn't want it to get even stronger. Right? No. Do we put it in design mistake? Is this the card? They use it in the weird FDK, yeah. With Butterfly Dagger Elma, you could just keep equipping it over and over again to Gearfried. I think Elma might have been the real mistake as far as design. But Elma and Xyz monsters and Link monsters, Elma would continue to be the mistake. So, but there's other things that you can do with him. You can put Black Pendant on him, burn people with it. You can put Smoke Grenade on it, and then start discarding cards from your opponent's hand. I really don't know where to put him. Filler, maybe? I don't know. I have no idea. He's immune to Snatch Steal, which is okay. I don't think you can put Fuma Shuriken on it. That's only ninjas. So, not that one, but definitely Black Pendant. Ooh, perfect tier. That's why we have the gimmick tier. Blast with Chain on him? Yeah. Oh, that's not spell, though. It's equip spells, isn't it? No, it's equip cards. Okay. he doesn't have any legitimate uses, so clearly it's a gimmick. Meta at one point, even before Elma, people used it with Smoke Grenade. Okay. I think gimmick is like outside of tiers though. Next up, Insect Barrier. Continuous spell. Insect type monsters your opponent controls cannot declare an attack. This is a really simple effect. This is like a perfect side deck card against something. It's bad Gravity Bind. I don't know if it's bad Gravity Bind because it's one-sided. Theoretically, this is useful. Put it next to Ground Collapse and Infinite Dismissal, which are both theoretically useful. I don't know. There's some potential there. Next up, Beast of Talwar. Dark Attribute, level 6. Fiend. Only the master of the sword among fiend-type monsters is permitted to hold the Talwar. And then in the bottom of the card, this card is always treated as an Archfiend card. 2400 attack, 2150 defense. I think this was actually a TCG exclusive for a little bit. But it's not bad. Insect Barrier is really strong in draft. Interesting. It's bad Swords of Revealing Light, but it can be used with DNA Surgery. Oh yeah, Beast of Talwar, really cool card. I like how it's an Archfiend, but I still think I'm running Summon Skull and Toon Summon Skull. Okay, one card left in the set, and it's the secret rare. Well, the second secret rare. The first secret rare was Genzo. So we started with an amazing card. Are we gonna end with one? Sorta. We're ending with Imperial Order. Continuous Trap. Negate all spell effects on the field. Once per turn, during your standby phase, you must pay 700 life points. This is not optional, or this card is destroyed. Yeah, I think that's fair. That this card, if this card were still allowed, it would be worth considering, but worst design mistake in the whole set? Is it worse than Solomon's Law Book? Is it worse than Parasite? Yeah, this is... I actually think that, Secret Village of the Spellcasters is even worse design. It's legal in Master Duel. Oh no. Yeah, it's had an effect-changing errata to make it a little bit worse, and it's still got rebanned. Gearfried was meta at my card shop even after Elma was banned. You could use it with Blast with Chain, and an 1800 warrior beater that cannot be stolen with Snatch Steal was also useful. I agree. There's definitely a lot of utility to Gearfried. If you really want, we can move it up to meta at one point. I do think that gimmick fits better, but just for a minute, it can stay in the meta. Secret Village is way more tolerable since you can turn it off by clearing the field of spellcasters. Sometimes you can, but sometimes you can't. I know there's a way to get out of it, but I still don't like the design of the card. I'm gonna keep it in gimmick, but we'll put it at top of gimmicks since it's probably the best out of all these cards. Okay, that's Pharaoh's Servant. Woo! I think we're gonna do one more because I have it ready already. Nope, I don't have it already ready. Okay, So we're going to actually show you the Shonen Jump promo cards. It's Dark Magician. Oh no, I actually think it's Blue Eyes White Dragon, but it's a reprint, so that's that. And we're actually going to get the actual last set is the McDonald's promos. And there's only a few of these, so they should go pretty fast. That is not the Kokiri Forest theme. Okay, I think we're ready. Clear the title card. Okay. Last set, just a few more. Okay. First card up, Millennium Shield. Earth attribute, level 5, warrior for some reason. A famous shield said to belong to an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. Legends tell of its power to block any strong attack. 0 attack, 3000 defense. It's like a reprint of Labyrinth Wall. I don't know if it's good or bad. I really don't know if there's any use for it. After that, we have Cosmo Queen. Dark attribute, level 8, spellcaster, Queen of the Galaxies, and Mistress of the Stars. 2900 attack, 2450 defense. This is actually a pretty good card. I know it's a normal monster, but isn't this better than Dark Magician? I think. Millennium Shield is a funny rat target. So is Labyrinth Wall, though, so I think it's like a functional reprint of Labyrinth Wall. It's a legend card in Rush Duels. Can Sangan search this shield? Yes, it can, but would you want to? It's still outclassed by Blue Eyes. Yeah, I agree. There's like some spellcaster shenanigans that you can use specifically with Cosmo Queen, but it's not a good gimmick. Next up, Goddess of Whim. Light attribute, level 3, fairy, effect. Once per turn, you can toss a coin and call heads or tails. If you call it right, double this card's attack during this turn. If you call it wrong, halve this card's attack during this turn. 950 attack, 700 defense. I don't think it's meta, but I think this card is good. So, you win the coin flip, you got a monster stronger than Mechanical Chaser. You lose the coin flip, and you got a bad monster. But you also have access to Gravity Bind now. So this can attack under Gravity Bind, which makes it a lot easier if you happen to lose the coin flip. Ooh, this card has had an effect changing errata. It used to not be once per turn. So I guess you could OTK with just that card if you're super lucky. Interesting. How can Dark Magician claim to be the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense when Cosmo Queen exists? Someone told me it's because he's in Legend of Blue Eyes and Cosmo Queen is in the McDonald's pack. So for like several months, he was the ultimate wizard. I guess Goddess of Whim might even be a design mistake then. But I'm just going to keep it on good on release because I don't know if everyone knew that. I didn't know that. Ah. You wouldn't even need to be lucky. You just have to have a lot of time on your hands. That's true. That's true because eventually you'd get there. Ultimate wizard is Alistair. I mean, he's like the ultimate evil dark wizard. Slime Toad used to be Frog the Jam. So, this card has had some changes in regionalization. It's not a member of the Frog archetype. Its Japanese name is closer to Slime Toad, so we got or Toad Slime, I think is the actual Japanese name. Yeah. So many different cards have to have the text except Frog the Jam because it wasn't a frog card. But you can use this for totally awesome, so it's sort of like an honorary frog. I think it's staying up there. I think that's a good place to keep it. Because the McDonald packs are ooh, we should make a tier higher. There we go. He has ascended. A frog in everything but name. I agree. Now, it even has frog in its description, though. He was so powerful, they took away his jam hood and made him slime. Wait, why couldn't it be Toad Jam? Why did they take away the jam part? Next up, Yaranzo. Dark Attribute, level 4, Zombie. A treasure box containing a monster that attacks any unwary bandit. 1300 attack, 1500 defense. Hey, this guy's a mimic. I'm going to keep him in normal tier, but he's actually a pretty cool normal monster. I like the design. I like the art quite a lot. Next up, Takriminos. Water Attribute, level 4, Sea Serpent. A member of a race of sea serpents that freely travels through the sea. 1500 attack, 1200 defense. I guess you could bring this out with Mother Grizzly, but we'll put him in the normal tier. Totally jammin'. In case they ever make a jam archetype. They made a slime archetype. It's called Gradle. Actually, I think some of the slime cards even played together too. So we actually already covered stuffed animal. I didn't realize that this was a reprint. So we even covered that in this scene, in this stream. It's your Proto Fluffle. Still really good artwork. Next up, Megasonic Eye. Dark Attribute, level 5, Machine. Made of mysterious metal, this monster is a doomsday weapon from the edge of the universe. 1500 attack, 1800 defense. Sangan target, Mystic Tomato target. Machine, level 5, interacts with cyber dragons. Is this good? I don't know, it's sort of okay. I'm getting the sense that maybe McDonald's are not the suppliers of so many meta cards. I mean, they started out real strong, but ooh. Ain't dooming any days with only 1500 attack. It does have quite the ominous description. They have had a playset of these cards in case the rock and roll McDonald's in Chicago. In a case at the rock and roll McDonald's in Chicago. Interesting. Yeah, whoever wrote the flavor text for Monsters really took a lot of creative license. Next up, Yamadron. Fire attribute, level 5, Dragon. This monster has 3 fire-breathing heads and can form a sea of blazing flames. 1600 attack, 1800 defense. It's pretty bad. I think this might be a reference to Yamada Dragon before we get Yamada Dragon. This is followed up by 3-legged zombies. Dark attribute, level 3, zombie. A pair of friendly zombies. Oh, I can't read. A pair of friendly skeletons, lean and fat, that travel with extreme difficulty. 1100 attack, 800 defense. Does this go all the way up in meme tier? Because of Unizombie? I don't know. This card's got a really good retrain, is the thing. Because Unizombie is really strong. This is the original Unizombie. Or the proto-Unizombie? I don't know. Next up, Newt. Flying Penguin. Water attribute, level 4, Aqua. A very rare penguin that takes to the air with ears shaped like wings. But you have wings. Why not use your wings? 1200 attack, 1000 defense. Absolutely baffling. Next up, Fairy's Gift, which looks to be just the fairy. Light attribute, level 4, Spellcaster. Why is this not a fairy? This flying monster is known for delivering happiness to all. 1400 attack, 1000 defense. Normal tier. Flying Penguin is the only Rescue Rabbit target in the Penguin deck. Is it the only normal penguin? I guess it is. Does that make it good? It makes it sort of good. Ah, fairy type is angel in the OCG. That's right. Next up, Ushioni. Dark attribute, level 6, Fiend. A bull fiend restored by the dark arts. This monster appears out of a jar. 2150 attack, 1950 defense. But in the very bad tier. Next up, Turtle Bird. Water attribute, level 6, Aqua. An unusual turtle that not only swims at tremendous speeds, but can also sail across the skies. 1900 attack, 1700 defense. Sort of reminds me of like Rodan maybe? Or Gamera? I'm not sure. It feels real familiar, but might be a corrupted memory. And final card in the set, and final card for the night. You'd think a turtle would have high defense. Yeah, you would. Island Turtle does, at least. It's a turtle and a bird. McDonald's not doing a great job for promoting Yu-Gi-Oh! I know. Some of the other McDonald's promos, this is the first set. They do another set in GX, and some of the cards are good, but most of them are not. I mean, if you got a Goddess of Whim as your card from McDonald's, I think you'd be pretty happy. If you got a Millennium Shield from McDonald's, you'd be okay. If you got a Frog the Jam, you made $60, but you got to wait 10 years. So, maybe more than 10 years. You got to wait 15 years for Frog the Jam. Final card in the set is Dark Piercing Light. Normal spell. Really good artwork. Flip all face down monsters on your opponent's side of the field face up. It's so close to being okay. If this didn't activate flip effects, then it would have been decent. But It's not great. I guess if you pull a flying penguin though, you're gonna feel okay in 15 years in your penguin deck. I don't know. Thank you, McDonald's, though, for giving us one of the weirdest looking lists. If it was the entire field, it'd also be good. Ooh! Because, okay, if Darkness Piercing Light affected your side of the field too, then at least you could use it in Empty Jar. That would be better. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. I'm not loving it. But that's the end of the stream. That's a lot of cards. But, whew. I'm heading to bed now. Hope everyone enjoyed the stream, and good night.